Hey, True Believers Englentine here. I am late tonight because I know that the Geeky Pup Show was doing an interview. I didn't want to step on their toes or anything, give them some time because we share the same audience. And, you know, I kind of figured a couple hours, let them get the meat and potatoes out. And I was looking for a subject to talk about. And I remembered, oh, yeah, I was wanting to watch that Perch review. I see a lot of people have already done one of these. I haven't seen it, but I've heard the controversy, what Sean Murphy Gordon said about Ethan Van Sciver and how he needs the controversy, basically. So I thought, okay, let's do a what the kids are calling an EFAP these days and see how it goes. Hello to Undead Quinn in the comments. Please share. And yeah, let me get this set up here, which you should be saying, hey, why don't you already have it set up? This is the whole point of your live stream tonight. And yes, it is. I'm kind of interested in this. A lot of people were talking about and looking to Sean Gordon Murphy. I don't know, to be, I think I just shared my own freaking stream, didn't I? Yeah, that's dumb of me. So let me actually do what I'm trying to do here. There we go. Okay, Titan Comics, Summer. There we go. Okay, let's share their interview. That's what I was supposed to do. Hey, calling out the drama hounds. Yeah, why not? Okay, look, this is what built the channel. I might as well revisit it sometime, right? Okay, now I got to make sure that I have the sound also being shared, and we'll get into this. Yes, I did. Try that again. Okay, because I was going to watch this anyway, and then I saw there's something to it, and I figured, okay, well, if I'm going to watch it, might as well turn on the camera and let it fly, right? So here we go. I'll push play here. I actually have skimmed because I was like, okay, what's the controversy? I heard they started talking about comics and the digital age and what Marvel should have done and all that kind of stuff during it. And then it gets to, I believe Sean says, we haven't even brought up woke. In all honesty, sometimes I can't tell between the two of them. So there you go. And that's when they actually start having that conversation. So, okay, once again, here we go. And this time it's for real. I'm not going to. And so that's where I'm starting it off. All right, let's listen.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Particularly in entertainment.
Tell me if you guys can hear it or not.
Bought, the freelancers or the producers or the people involved have equity.
Right.
And so where that changes the equation is suddenly that equity is a publicly traded company. It's a lot more.
From 2000 to 2010 in our experiment here, right?
I might have been a little.
And you've already made a lot of significant improvements. We haven't even mentioned the word woke yet.
Here we go.
It has nothing to do with content. But getting into content a little bit, would you have then encouraged Marvel DC to create books that match what's on the screen? So you can have Thor be a lady, but
this is actually something that was complained about, something that was talked about back in the day. When I first started my channel, we were talking about how people would go to the movies and they would see Tony Stark as Iron Man. They'd see Chris Hemsworth as Thor and Captain America, of course, Chris Evans, and they all looked like their original comic book counterparts. And then you go into comic book shop and Falcon is Captain America. You have Lady Jane as Thor, and you have Ironheart instead of Iron Man. And now I know there were some people who were being wrong about it. My position, and a lot of people, most people's position was give them their own books. We were called racist for saying that. We were called ists and phobes and all sorts of stuff. When we weren't saying get rid of the characters. We're saying give them their own books. But anyway, let's hear what they have to say.
You should probably have a classic Thor to sell to normies who just watched the movie. More of that stuff.
Yeah.
I think you would have had a more pure alignment. I mean, the challenge there is that, the creators are going to be ahead of the movies. The movies are going to take 3 to 4 years to produce, and you can't just have the comics in a holding pattern while you're waiting for this movie to come out. But I think you would have seen more of almost stylistic alignment. The other thing I think you would have seen.
Okay, the only thing I would say to Perch on this one is by the time this really became, we're talking about 2016, 2015. By that time, we're already 8 years into the Marvel Universe. So they already know. So that 3 years, yeah, you're going to have the comics ahead of the movies and you can be forward about it, but you know what the movies are doing. You know what they had, at least at that point in time, an idea of where they were going from time to time. So they should have separated the two. They should have made sure that there were the books there for, as they say, the normies.
Is, you know, if suddenly there's equity in the mix and there's, you know, real portfolio management, people who are really in charge from the editorial department, you would not have a company that's sticking around with 80 variant covers. Right. You would have had a company instead that says, hey, everybody knows Spider-Man. You make sure there's 4 Spider-Man books on the shelf, and you make sure there's a Moon Knight people recognize. Well, not Moon Knight, it's a terrible example, but a Cap, and a Thor, like the core characters. You would have never seen them experiment outside of what is worldwide recognizable. Right. Now, a lot of creators would say, well, that sucks. I mean, what happens to creative freedom and all the rest?
There was one thing, I believe it was Mark Waid said, never do. The first rule is to not do harm. You can do what you want with the character. You can give them 4 arms, have them fight Morbius if you want. You can do the clone thing, but it all kind of has to reset with a few changes as you go forward, but you never mess with the core of the character. And that's where your freedom comes. So long as you're changing things that are not the core of the character, okay, that's good.
I don't know. Everybody's making money, so I think you get lots of creative freedom when you're rich.
Right. And then another part of this experiment is you'd want to tell Marvel and DC to get a digital strategy together, because by 2010 to 12 is when e-readers and all that started becoming much bigger, and it made more sense to focus on that. And they haven't done that now, 10 years later.
Yeah, I mean, the crazy part about that is a lot of people forget. I mean, Steve Jobs was on Disney's board, right? And so he's there pushing the iPhone and tablet readers and everything else in technology. And Disney went in on it. The parks converted over to tech. Yep. Disney is relatively tech forward in what they do as a kind of a park entity. Yeah. But they've allowed Marvel just to do whatever it wants over there. And I really do think,
when it comes to I mean, look, we've had digital comics now for 15 years, something along those lines. I know it started in the mid to late 2000s. And the thing is they don't understand comic book buyers, much less readers. I mean, forget about the readers part. There's much less comic book readers than there are buyers, because some people will buy, he mentioned the 80 variant covers. There are people who will just buy the variants because they believe that's the collectability of new comic books. There are people out there who will buy any issue #1 because, hey, that might be the next Action Comics #1. So I don't think that the digital will ever completely take over until Marvel or DC just say, you know what, we're done with paper.
I think it comes back to they don't have to spend much to operate it. Right. They don't have to really get involved. There's no real equity. Very few people in the management team even get equity. I mean, I have no idea if Tom Brevoort gets Disney stock, but I would tend to doubt it.
Right. And but what's really interesting about all this is we've probably skimmed over the first 15 years of the movies from 2000 to 2015, right before Trump got elected, when the woke stuff really started. And I think you laid out a really compelling case for why comics was already way off the rails. How a lot of the problems that we are going to be facing from 2015 on,
it was all Perch.
The seeds are planted for disaster.
Yeah, you're kind of done at that point, because you know the content, I always have felt, and I lots of people disagree, it's somewhat of a red herring, because what preceded it were all these bad decisions. Right. And so then you're getting into, well, what's this super political, super woke book that's going out on the stands? Right. It doesn't really matter at that point, because it's being sold inside the small retail shop footprint. Right. I mean, like, well, I always think here, is it any big surprise that some creators make the content they do? I mean, if you live in Portland and you're going to your local Portland shop, right, I got news for you. That is what the retailer and a lot of the core clientele would want.
Yeah, it's kind of surprising. You do see, of course, we always have our national hits and everything, but even within like I live in the greater Orlando area. Even within that, you could go from one shop to another, and oh my gosh, we're all Donny Cates fans over here, and yeah, we hate Donny Cates in this store, and sometimes it might be even be in the same franchise of shops or something along those lines. Hold up, I've invited ladies and gentlemen to join, but let me see if I can't get at least the most talkative of us, as well as anybody in the chat. If you have something to say, just say, come on in. Baby, take a load off. That's Oak Ridge Boys. All right. Let's see. People bootleg CBRs for over 20 years. Why I never. Is this the man they call the gay Blade? I've heard stuff. I'm waiting to hear from here, but yeah, I heard something that it might be a bit of a bait and switch. We'll find out.
So you are in effect writing what your customers want. The problem is it's at such a tiny scale.
Yeah.
It just doesn't matter.
Yeah. I wonder, don't get me wrong. This super crazy liberal woke stuff that's meant to dunk and bash people that don't think like you, that content is not helping.
No.
And the act of hiring someone who works at a comic book shop to be an editor, and they only hire their friends. So you have cronyism. And they're on these message boards reinforcing their so-called wokeness. That's not helpful either. And then you throw in Brie Larson and whatever. Like, no wonder we have this game show on YouTube of these channels that claim to be review channels. But really, they're just WWF announcers.
Okay, yeah, I get this. And by the way, I'm part of the problem, and I understand that. I do. The fact that, look, it's like, oh my gosh, this guy said this. Can you believe that guy said that? Oh, outrage, grr. And look, the thing is it's news and people want to talk about it. Can you believe what that guy said? Oh my gosh, what are they doing with Star Wars and all that? I understand. I understand how you could see it as I don't know, game show, because there's really no winners in this. But definitely a sports announcer would be a better analogy, I think, because it's very much like that. And whose side are you on? Who do you choose? Do you root for our side? And what happens when our side turns? Because that has happened, or at least I've been told I've turned, because I stopped saying that everything automatically sucks, because I'd rather like something. You know, I do really go to the movies and hope that the movie I'm seeing is excellent. I really do want everybody to be wrong that the next issue of Hawkwoman is going to be awesome instead of the dumpster fire that the last three have been. I understand that more than likely it's not going to be, but yeah. Hey, don't knock kayfabe. What is kayfabe? I am not. I'm sorry, I'm not up on the hip slang all the time. But yeah, what is kayfabe? Let's see. Fapping the Perch interview. Okay, there we go. I'm sending a message to Dalton, see if they want to jump on or something along those lines. Alrighty. And pick a tribe. Yeah, you definitely pick your own tribe and never say anything. I'll tell you what, that was something. That was something in the OGCG days. I got in trouble. My brother actually said something about DNC, and I got in trouble for it. They did not like you going against the word.
And they just want to cover the body slams. They're not really about comics. They're not really trying to serve the industry. They're about serving themselves, and that's okay. But I feel like what we have here is
actually, that's something that was brought up quite a bit, that once the money came in, once people found out they could make money by going after someone, that's when everything started falling apart, because it stopped being about the characters. It stopped being about the comics, and it started being about how many views, how many clicks could it get. I still stand that I was a little bit aside of it, because I never lied about the fact that this is the way I'm trying to make a living. This is going to be my new job right here. So I was always interested in the clicks. And some people, they would use this as an insult. You're just in it for the clicks. Yes. What they meant, of course, is you don't really believe what you're saying. But my thinking is the best way to get an audience is to always be sincere. So I never quite understood that part of it. What is it? Regulatory context, but I have no idea what. Yeah. I don't know what kayfabe is. All right, let's move forward.
Is not a content problem. It was all these other dials that were set up incorrectly for 15 years before Trump even got elected. And I think people who are listening this far will probably agree with a lot of what we're saying. But
15 minutes in.
It's hard to dunk and feel an emotional response when you're talking about, you know, the lack of coordinating in 2005 or whatever. Like, it's better to point at Brie Larson and laugh. You know, like, I get why the game is played this way. But the boring truth is
yeah, that's true. If you can have a central villain in all of it, you are golden. I mean, how many times has Kathleen Kennedy been fired? How many times has Disney been doomed or dead already? How many times has this central figure that we all should hate been a problem? Just name it. Name the figure. We've seen the thumbnails. We've seen the videos. We've seen everybody. You need a villain in order, a central villain. And it doesn't have to be a person. It could be a thing. The last season of Game of Thrones could be it. The new season of Ahsoka could be it. You make your 82,000 videos worth of Doesn't Ahsoka Suck? And all the Ahsoka haters will go, yes, it does. Give me more. And you could build a channel off of that. For me, it was America Chavez. I did, I think, 8 videos about issues 1 through 8. And this really is the channel that America Chavez built, excuse me. And that's what you need for what he's talking about. He is dead on about this. You truly need. And I know, you know, I'm going to get ahead of myself because I know the EVS controversy and all this stuff in advance. So, kayfabe, long A for both A's, kayfabe. Okay, pronounce the E. What wrestlers do, it refers to a drama that surrounds the matches, even into the matches themselves. Okay, I get it. If it were a movie, it would be the MacGuffin.
We're in trouble now, completely outside of the wokeness. But I believe that the wokeness is not helped either.
No, I mean, but it was a logical conclusion. And I mean, any kind of extreme niche writing is not going to help anything. You know, if it was exactly the polar opposite, and I don't know what is an ultra conservative book,
right,
is going to have the same problem.
Right.
It's.
By the way, there was an ultra conservative book. I forget what it was. It was this dude, red and blue suit, Static or something like that. East something, and it really was ultra conservative. And I was one of the only conservatives that said this is not good. It's just it's just our side, our version of woke. And yeah, it very much leaned heavily on this. Well, once again, about 3 or 4 years ago, had an argument with Erratic. Thank you, Undead Coin. I had an argument with CB Cebulski, and we were talking about how this whole thing was starting. At the time, they were very much looking for, as they said, a female audience. Now, this female, they did some research, and there was like a certain amount of females that read comics. And the problem with that is they were putting manga into the pile of comics. A lot of females read manga. Some females read comics. We know that. But what they were going after was the female audience. The problem was they were absolutely A-okay with sacrificing the male audience that they already had, especially me. I'm an old fart. Look, I'm aged out. I think what you're culturally relevant and as far as the buying public until you're like 52 or something like that. So basically I've aged out of relevancy. So they don't give a f about what I think. But the problem was, and I've said it before, I'll say it again, I'll say it till the end of time, that in order to get that female audience, they were willing to sacrifice the one they already had. And the dangerous part of sacrificing old farts like myself is we are trained to buy every issue of whatever we collect. If we collect Sean Gordon Murphy books, then by God, we're not going to miss one, whether it sucks or not. If we collect Avengers, we're going to make sure that our collection doesn't go 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7. We're going to make sure we find that number 4. And they got rid and tried to force out that obsessive audience that absolutely had proven for 50 years that they're willing to lay their money down.
Niche. It's not going to sell. But you're absolutely right. It's way easier to show a clip of Brie Larson kind of yucking it up on the red carpet about, you know, some idiot fan versus, you know, dunking on Bob Harris, who is a complete tool who probably did way more to hurt comics than Brie Larson ever could imagine.
And also Brie Larson is pretty.
Yeah. I mean, you know, here you have a guy who continues to get hired. I know we'll get to later, but over and over and over again. Yeah. I'm sure maybe nice, but why? He drove Image to become Image. I mean, he got Chris Claremont off the X-Men. He mismanaged those books, which sort of never recovered. And
we never have.
Yet, you know, he wanders over to DC. He gets a consulting job here or there. And again, maybe
now the problem I have with that, yes, I hated that Chris Claremont was booted off. But here's the thing. Here's something that, and maybe it's just my shops, the ones that I went to here in Orlando. Maybe nobody else ever argued or said anything, but I talked to and met a lot of Image fans. And by that, I mean, they were fans of Todd McFarlane. They were fans of Jim Lee, of Rob Liefeld, of Wals Partatia, whatever the hot artist of the time was, they were fans of it. And when the news that Chris Claremont was no longer going to be on the X-Men came, they were like, he's old anyway. Let Jim Lee get in there. Let Todd McFarlane write Spider-Man because they're awesome artists. But how are they as writers was the question. But nobody wanted, because the popular thing, man, they're the hot guys. Bring them on in. And by that, I mean, of course, as artists and such. You be the judge if you actually thought they were hot as well. And we see that now. People jump on all sorts of bandwagons and such, whether they're actually good or not. And they do it without any kind of critical thinking.
Wonderful guy, but comics keeps diving into these people over and over and over again. But you know, who wants to do a video on Bob Harris? Like nobody.
So
a video on Bob Harris.
Two things. One, I know Bob. I like Bob.
Yeah.
I don't know a lot about his past, and we're just casual acquaintances, but I enjoy him when I see him. But I'm not going to disagree.
Hello to Dalton.
Sorry?
Jumping on
I said now made it difficult for you.
No, it's okay. I am sure he made mistakes.
Hello to Dalton. What's up?
I am doing all right. What fresh hell are we finding ourselves in today?
Well, okay. For everybody who jumped in, I have never seen this interview. I heard about some of the controversies with EVS and what Sean Gordon Murphy had said about the woke and all that kind of stuff. So I figured, what the heck, if I'm going to watch the video, might as well turn the camera on myself and do a reaction thing. I figured, you know, it's always nice to have somebody bounce off of. So I sent, basically, I would love to say, Dalton, I just went for you, man, because I knew you beat. But in all honesty, I just sent the feelers out to anybody who wanted to jump in.
Yeah.
Thank you for taking the bait, man.
That's how it goes. But I'm usually the one who answers, aren't I?
I certainly appreciate it. Well, the guys, by the way, they're doing their thing. They have an interview. I gave them 2 hours before I jumped on. I wanted to make sure that they could get their meat and potatoes. I really want Geeky Puppets to succeed. So by all means, ladies and gentlemen, don't load. I need my views too. So stay here, but afterwards go check that out and maybe you'll enjoy it there. But that being said, let's get back into the interview there and welcome Dalton. And here we go.
The consulting job here or there. And again, maybe a wonderful guy, but comics keeps diving into these people over and over and over again. But you know, who wants to do a video on Bob Harris? Like nobody.
So two things. One, I know Bob. I like Bob.
Yeah.
I don't know a lot about his past, and we're just casual acquaintances, but I enjoy him when I see him. But I'm not going to disagree that. I'm sorry?
A weird thing happens when creators are talking about other creators. I hate using that word because, and I am sort of religious. I believe in a higher power. Mostly my practice is Buddhism. which it doesn't have a higher power, by the way. But the thing is I really still kind of feel uncomfortable calling people creators.
We
without
create
using the word.
art.
Yeah.
We create art or content or journalism or
but-
whatever happens to be your poison.
Yeah, so I do like to say, if I say comic, then I can put it in there. But here's my main point on this. I have actually seen people go after oh, that person said that they like this guy we don't like, therefore he is
The devil.
Yeah, there you go, Satan himself. And I never understood that, because they don't understand. They actually work with, they talk to everybody. We know them through what we hear in at YouTube, or we see in an article or something like that.
Or they post for themselves on Twitter, it must be said sometimes.
Yeah. So I can understand when you get an interview like this and the person seems a little bit reticent to actually jump on. Like, I know Bob. Bob's a good guy. I don't know what he did, blah, blah, blah. He might actually, but he doesn't. Even Sean Gordon, I would doubt, looks at the comic book industry as, say, me or Wes or Perch, because that's our job, or that's what we've chosen our job to be. You know, we break it down. I love the history of comics, so it's a little bit different. So
in the same way as when Vice does its hit pieces on YouTubers or content creators, for example, very often you will see people dodging their obviously inflammatory questions because, you know, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me thrice, twice, infinity, shame on me.
Yeah, but so, and I also understand where it might be you don't want to say something because you might want to work on a book. Say that obviously Sean Gordon has his own going on now, even in the DC universe. But what if he wants to work on it? And, oh, by the way, Bob Harris is there. Yeah, you don't want to actually say anything.
Well,
anyway,
yeah, and then you have to have the you talk crap about me conversation in
let's
public.
move forward on this one.
And so now it made it difficult for you.
No, it's okay. I'm sure he made mistakes. It sounds like he's made a ton. I'm not defending him, of course. The second thing I was going to say was, I guess, yeah, let's get into how come when people fail in comics, they fail down. They succeed up, but then they fail down, and then they just hang on to the bottom rung, and they don't go away.
There are so many examples of failing upward. For cripe's sake, I'm about to read Capwolf by Stephanie Phillips, who actually I don't mind as a writer. I actually like her up until she's like Stephen King for comics. She can write a really good story right up until the end. I'm not saying she's as good as Stephen King, but yeah.
But Stephen King rather famously can't write an ending.
You can't write endings, yeah. So yeah, that's the problem here. Hello to Dominic as well. Hi, what's up?
Good evening, fellas. I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Oh, doing well. We're managing. Let's see, we're 28 minutes into the hour video and 17 minutes into theirs. So we're gonna go until I'm bored. Basically, I don't know if we're gonna finish this one, but there you are. Yes, the one who picks up the rope. Yeah, look at for a while, Vita Ayala was on every goddamn book, and not one of them was worth reading.
Well,
what the hell's that all about?
Well, that's because the writing isn't good.
I mean,
she's not a good writer.
I mean, look, to give kind of a more arch example, Zoe Quinn had never written a comic book in her life. Her big claim to fame was being tangentially a games journalist, and yet she marshaled her victimhood points into Goddess Mode, one of the worst comics ever written.
Good. No, but we
don't talk about it.
Here's the thing. I will give credit to what's her name? I'm sorry, she's escaping me. Don't buy her books because you don't like her. Kelly Sue DeConnick. The Aquaman that she wrote was a huge step down. It was like Dan Abnett to Kelly Sue. But below Kelly Sue was the Vita Ayala and the T. Franklin and so forth and so on. At least, the very least, that Aquaman was readable. It wasn't good. It wasn't bad. You take them both, and there you have the facts of life. Let's move on to the with the interview here.
Next.
I hate to pick on Heather Antos, who I don't know her.
You know, Sean, you're the only person in the world who hates to pick on Heather.
She does not like me. And watching, you made a video once, she's almost like a case study of what not to do.
Once again, yeah, Perch made the video. That's a video everybody search, anybody who talks about comics and might bring up SJW or woke, and they've got that Heather Antos.
I mean, it was Milkshake Night that kind of christened this entire group back in the day.
I gotta
so,
tell you,
yeah.
man, like I said, I was 15 hours on Twitter fighting that milkshake fight. It was so weird. That was one of the weirdest days of my entire life. It is a complete, I can't say it was a wasted day because, like you said,
it made history.
It put a rocket underneath a whole bunch of YouTube channels. So,
well, yeah, in terms of talking to people, but a lot of people are this way. I mean, and of course, I'm close friends with Heather Antos, so no, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
That's all right.
No, the funny part is a lot of the people we could mention here, I'm sure in real life. I mean, I have no idea. I'm sure they're quite charming and tip their barista and all the rest, but.
Okay, there is only one person who came off as an asshole on Twitter that I could truly say was an asshole in real life. God rest his soul. But there's a reason why I did a segment called Shit Neil Adams Says. Neil Adams was a jacket. In my opinion, I'm sure somebody's met him and he was like the nicest guy.
The man went insane is the thing.
But when I met him, he was not. He would have none of, oh, Mr. Adams, I'm a very big, no. Nada. Not with me anyway. I might be an outlier on that.
It is weird that you have people who kind of materially mismanage a line, and in most companies, that person, there'd be a stigma attached to
right.
that. They would have trouble getting another job.
Right. Yeah.
In comics, there seems to be some value in just being there.
Right.
So even, whether you succeeded or failed in your company, somebody's going to give you money to come back and try it again.
Right. Yeah.
And I mean, second, third, fifth chances, fine, but it begs the question, why? And I guess what's even weirder.
Okay, I can answer this because some people forget about something that Heather Antos did. While all of the rest of Marvel was crumbling, the Star Wars books, which Heather Antos was editor of, were actually good at that time. I know it's easy. This is why I lost some of my audience, is because I'm not afraid to say, you know what? She actually did do some good. And then she went off the freaking rails, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, and that's the sad thing about most of them. Most of the usual suspects that we can name either started out by doing good and then went insane, vis-a-vis Neil Adams and company, or they started out going slightly insane and they grew into something resembling a talent. Like, I remember when Chip Zdarsky was the whipping boy of the day, and then he turned himself around and it was like, oh, actually,
he started writing good books.
When you know.
Neil Adams was very cold to con visits, and that's where I met him. I thought Perch was live streaming with you guys. Nope, I don't think actually, I've never asked him if he wanted to. So, but I would assume, I mean, look, this channel won't help his. See how he has 10.6 million views in his entire life. I have yet to make 4. Now, granted, the legs got cut out from under me a long time ago, but I didn't do much to help that out. So we'll see. All right. So let's get going here.
The people come and they get their new job, and then they run the exact same play that failed. That's the most baffling part.
So going from the failure of Comixology to what could be coming soon is the failure of Distillery, run by the same people, kind of playing the same play. I don't understand why Distillery expected to be different than the failure of Comixology. And I know that's not a one-to-one comparison, but I don't know. I thought maybe that would go to your point of people are running the same play, expecting to get different results.
It is.
The worst part now, I don't know what Distillery is or anything. I do know Comixology. Amazon took over Comixology, and they at first tried to change it. And all of the people who had it goes, nope, put it back. And at least Amazon listens. And this is one of the big differences here. Amazon listened to their customer base, and they put back the panel to panel where you could actually see the book you're reading and all that kind of stuff. And they tried to make it more user-friendly than what they had it. The problem with people like Heather Antos and a lot of the comic book writers and artists and so forth is
you criticize me, I will morally shame you.
Yeah, if you criticize, you're a Nazi, you're an ist and an ism and all that kind of stuff. So
you're immoral.
If you're not, and God forbid they actually take an idea from some of the people who are actually paying for their books.
I mean, it's maybe Distillery pulls it out. I have no idea, but when you come out and you run the same thing, and this is mainstream comic companies, independents, a lot of them. What's quite shocking is when you see something not really working at Marvel or DC.
Yeah.
And then you turn around and Boom is doing the same play, and you're like, what the hell are you like? You saw it blow up there. Whether it's a particular creator who just can't be commercial and can't sell, or whether it's a variant cover strategy, or whether it's a way that they're talking to the shop, it's
Dynamite produces 90,000 per freaking issue. And I would love to get off of that just a little bit. I don't seriously buy incentive covers and all that kind of stuff. Occasionally something might catch the eye.
But while we're on the topic of people failing upward, there is an exception that I don't know if the guy doing the interview just didn't think of asking this question when that came up, or just in general, but the only exception to the failing upward rule seems to be if you are morally blacklisted, if you are shown to be an ideological dissident of some description, then the failure sticks. Then, regardless of how successful you are, then the failure sticks.
It depends on the politics. All right, let's move on a little bit.
It's bizarre that comics seem stuck in the, well, there's nothing we can do. We just got to do the same thing.
Right.
It's over a decade.
It feels like, I think when people get over 40 or 45 and they've been around comics for a long time, it's just, they're part of the culture and they see it as this, extended family, and they're not going to go anywhere. They just want to keep hanging out. And they find excuses to keep hanging out. And they do have special knowledge of how comics work. They do have insight into what the direct market is and what a variant is, and the Silver Age history of Green Lantern, whatever. Like, those are very unique, weirdo skills that if you hired someone from the outside and fired the people that were in, you'd have to educate them on a lot of things.
Yeah.
This is Cameron Lucida. And for the whole of the 19th century,
okay, let me
here's the problem with that supposition, though. There are modern day nerds, there are modern day encyclopedias of comicdom that you could easily hire that they don't, and in favor,
but what he was saying
instead they hire the YA writers and so on.
I think his point was more to the fact that I could tell you all about the history of the JSA. I could tell you about the history of C.C. Beck and Jack Cole and all sorts of golden age artists that you probably haven't even heard of or know what they worked on. But what I wouldn't know is the business of comics. And I think that was his point.
We should get some new hires from outside, but I understand why the same folks hang around, is because they come factory installed with all this knowledge that you don't have to explain to someone who's coming in from Wall Street.
Well, yeah, I mean, and it's also easy. It's easy for me to sit here and go, yeah, I don't know why they don't have new people coming in. Why are they getting the same old people? Particularly, one of the skills somebody would say is like, well, I know how to work Diamond. I know how to get placement in the catalog. Well, is that really a very interesting skill?
Right.
I mean, I guess if you're limiting yourself to a very small.
Supposedly, though, if you can talk to a business, that's salesmanship right there. Being able to negotiate, being able to find movers and shakers and so forth and so on. What were you about to say?
Right. But on this topic as well, though, some of what he's describing is why they're so ivory towerish, why they're so set in their ways, because they've been doing it the same way for the last 20, 30, 40 years, and it's not the same world as it was 20, 30, 40 years ago. And maybe that is part of the reason that some of these writers, even the more experienced ones, are getting more and more out of touch and more Neil Adams-ish as time goes by. Maybe it is just
call it
because
cons.
they're doing a how do you do fellow kids, basically.
Right. All right.
Right.
You know?
And that it allowed Diamond to be a monopoly for a long time without anybody challenging it.
That's right.
So yeah, I'm not opposed to keeping some of the same people around, but I wish that the leaders would change the culture.
Well,
Like,
you
listen,
need a mix. I mean, you can't
Right.
just have industry knowledge forever because the industry changes. I mean, it is why Kodak largely, Nextel went out of business. Is why Blockbuster went out of business. There was some leader there going, if we just hang on here,
Mort Weisinger, by the way, who believed that Marvel was a fad.
we'll keep selling videotapes. Will come
Wow.
back.
Yeah.
It's baffling. It's hard for me, having been in this business for a long time as a retailer. I'm sure it's hard for you as a creator. You want to see change. You want to see things expand. One of the most exciting parts about comics is the unexpected.
Yeah. I think the low cost of comics, and I was trying to formulate this sentence before I started with you today because I was thinking about it. Part of me is frustrated that I feel like I'm wired like Wall Street, but I'm stuck at a flea market.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm a black belt and everyone around me is a yellow belt, and it's annoying, but you can kick a lot of ass. So, for example, I don't think I should have been allowed to get Zorro. I think Zorro should have been a property that should be chugging along just fine if it had been managed a certain way. The fact that I was able to swoop in and grab it as a creator, well, I guess it's lucky that I'm in an industry that no one was paying attention to Zorro, or it wasn't getting the right amount of eyes.
Is Zorro not in the public domain?
I
thought it was.
I don't think so. At least not right now. I think they basically pulled the Disney and did a sliding timescale thing with it.
Oh, okay. If you in the chat know what if Zorro's in the public domain or not, I thought it was. That's why they were able to make shit like Zorro the Gay Blade in the '80s and all that kind of stuff.
No, I mean, I'm positive that Zorro is actually in the public domain, but I could double check.
Now, what he could be saying is somebody else should already be making a Zorro comic, and he's right.
I think that is what he's getting at. It's sort of like in a sane world, I wouldn't have to be the one to fix it, I think is what he's getting at.
Yeah. The same goes, I think, with Robin Hood and King Arthur. Every so often somebody tries to do their version of it and it just doesn't work for some reason. And
I mean, you could say the same thing for the majority of Marvel and DC as well, because in a sane world, you wouldn't have to restart at #1 every 5 issues.
Well, okay, you know what? I'm gonna do something else that pisses off my audience. That's the fault of the audience, not ours. Mine is awesome, and I don't think they fall for every fucking #1. But the point is that a lot of people do. A lot of people go, "Oh, a new #1. Let me pick that up." And he's talking about doing the same thing over and over again. They're starting now at Marvel and DC. We have seen it where they're starting a new #1. They just canceled a book 2 months ago. They're restarting it with the exact same creative team. And
how many of the same event have we gotten? Like, how many Infinity-based Marvel stories have there been? Or how many
it's the
Secret Wars or Civil Wars are we on?
Wars. Yeah. I think he is in public domain, says Aqualad. I saw Guandaland Comics publish Zorro comics from the Dell, but they can't use the Zorro name. Oh, okay. There you go. Those people are enablers. I absolutely believe that. I really do.
On it. And so I guess I'm glad that it's the Old West, and I'm the fastest 6-shooter because I can just take what I want and just run ruckshot over people. So I guess sometimes
are we forgetting that it was Dynamite has produced Zorro comics now for 10 years and Lone Ranger and Green Hornet and all sorts of
I think what he's getting at is creatively.
Okay.
Because no one is really managing any of these IPs well. a new person can just go, I want to work on this character, and no one puts up any resistance.
Oh, okay.
I think.
I'm glad that
Wait,
everyone's a yellow belt.
Yeah.
I know this sounds like really arrogant. There's a lot of other black belts in comics, a lot of my friends. Like, I'm not saying I'm the only one that has it figured out.
Yeah.
I guess sometimes I'm glad that it's so amateur at times, because it allows me to do what I want and get things done. But I kind of wish I was in an industry that was more stable, that had stock options, where it would be harder to move up, but if you could do it slowly and carefully, the industry would take care of you.
Sure.
So, sometimes I feel like I'm glad the industry is.
What were you gonna say?
Okay, I'm confused. Maybe it's him mixing metaphors, or maybe I'm just being dumb. But he's mixing in business language here, and I thought what he meant was creative. So maybe it's just me being dumb, or maybe it's him mixing metaphors. I don't know.
Okay. Maranya saying, if classic comic books were run like they are currently run-wise, Fantastic Four 48 through 50 would have started with a new number 1, and there would be endless tie-ins. Yeah, it would be a 16-issue with you would have the Galactus Trilogy Moon Knight, the Galactus Trilogy New Mutants, the Galactus Trilogy America Chavez, and all that kind of stuff.
I mean, Gaiman's original Sandman was 75 issues. There is no force on this earth that can make a 75-issue run today.
Just about. Captain Marvel, I think, almost made it. Nightwing's done it. I don't know. There's a few. But then again, I always say there's exception to the rule. Let's move on just a touch.
The way it is. Sometimes I'm annoyed that it's not better. When I see people, begging for money online for basic medical, that's when it makes me upset that the industry isn't better run and more professional.
Yeah. No, I'm sure it's actually tough to, because there's a dynamic where, you're in this industry where you get to actually do quite a bit. And because you're organized and you have your shit together, you are able to make some big plays. And if there was more attention, more management on this, you would not. It would be more of a corporate, managed and controlled thing.
Right.
And there'd be a lot more competition as well. So there's not a guarantee that you'd be as successful.
Right.
Which is scary to a lot of people. And I suspect that's a huge reason why it stays the way it is.
Right.
I know I can be a big fish in this tiny pond.
Right.
Or I can take a chance, go to the bigger pond and get eaten.
I remember when DC and Marvel was the big pond. I think it's almost like people now use DC and Marvel as a launching pad for their own creator-owned comic book, for their Kickstarter.
Which is so bass-ackwards, because again, in a sane world that was functioning as it should be, you work your way up to the big leagues. It would almost be inverted. You do your own thing first to prove you got the bona fides, and then you get picked up by one of the big two teams. But the big two have become such a thing unto itself that.
Well, I'm going to get to that in just a moment. I've got a thought on that. But Geek Hero is saying, I feel like once the industry starts taking care of you, it starts to choke you. And I think there's something to that. That being said, I lost my point on what I was going to talk about. Okay, what were they talking about? Never mind. Let's move forward. My original point was lost. Okay, I'm an old man. I'm forgetting things.
Podcast you and I did, which had 27,000 views.
Well,
that was the opening hot take we had was, I don't think people actually want comics to get better, because if it was better, there'd be more money, which would attract more talent, which means there were more competition. And if you're not good at your job, you get pushed out. And people don't want to be pushed out. So they kind of want this cozy industry, as you're saying.
Well,
and I mean, it does seem like there is some truth to that, especially on the comic book creator side, like the Comicsgate side, if you will. Speaking for myself, I've always been clear on this from day one. I just want my characters to be written like my characters, and for them to have good stories forever in perpetuity. Like, that's all I'm asking for.
Well, so like
So
as I
never
said
been asked
earlier,
before.
you want the characters. You can change things, but don't change the core of the character. Let the character be who they are. And unfortunately, you're not seeing that. I can see a point to what he's saying, because you do have people, the Vita Ayelas and so forth. The mags does the
That wouldn't get hired if the
well, the thing
industry was
they
functioning
want to
properly.
keep, they do want to keep out the bad, the good writers, the good artists. Definitely when you're talking about somebody like Chuck Dixon, who is a different political lean than they are. And in order to do that, they don't just say, well, he's bad at comics. They talk about how bad a person he is. You're not in an office with Chuck Dixon. If you don't work with Chuck Dixon, you don't have to deal with Chuck Dixon when you're making comics these days. That's just the way it is. It really was a lot that way in the past. Stan Lee gave us the myth of the big friendly
Bullpen. Yeah.
and all that kind of stuff. There were a few people who worked in the offices, but it wasn't like Stan Lee was doing that. And that part of the fun, by the way, of the 80s was that mythical bullpen. But the point being is these people that they try to keep out, Ethan Van Sciver included, the people they try to keep out, they try to keep out on the basis that not their creativity, but that they're bad people, when that has nothing to freaking do with them working. So
Well,
why would you
does,
be afraid of them working if you were not afraid of them taking the jobs?
it does work that way for the SJWs, though, because they don't actually care about the comic book industry as an industry. They don't care about comics as an art form or a storytelling medium like you and I do. They care about comics as a structure to be taken over in the moral and political sense, to be used as a political weapon or a tactical holdover, basically.
Okay. Oh, and Clint, by the way, is mentioning that CG does want comics to fail. Well, I've heard this a lot as well. He's
Let it all burn.
Right. Yeah, let it all burn, let it all crash. Who cares? Blah blah blah.
We'll rebuild it with our stuff.
You know who cares? I care. I care because I love the freaking characters. I love the freaking comics. That's the name. If I was allowed to name my channel, I love comics, that would be weird. How about I fucking love comics? That would be better. But Maranya cares because she wants Iron Man to be done well. You care because you want Doctor Strange and Dr. Fate to be done well. Everybody's got a character that we used to be a comic book buyer's revolution. Unfortunately, they got fucked the day that EVS took it and decided to make the comic book creator, the most important thing.
And then they started doing exactly the same things we started criticizing the other ones for.
We no longer had a huge group of people saying, treat our characters right, which, by the way, did have movement. They canceled the bad comics and they started bringing in some good comics, and it just went away because the only voices they were hearing, you would see it all the time. Umbrella Guy, Yellow Flash types would be like, "Oh, I'm leaving. God damn it." Okay, then your voice means nothing. I'm sorry, but that's the truth. If you don't have blood in the fight, if you don't have money on the table, they don't care. Especially if you're somebody who's just on YouTube yelling and screaming and complaining about them.
Yep.
But that's the way it was. That's the freaking fate of what became of our customer revolution. I don't know how I got onto that tangent, but let's move on.
Well, and it's probably going to happen to Gary and the Black Pills too. Once Hollywood has realized there's no money to be made anywhere, then whoops, there goes the entire industry.
So the thing that doesn't get talked about a lot, especially when people are dunking on Western comics for manga, is kind of the little hidden truth that some astronomically high number, like more than 80%, starve and wash out of manga creators. They do not make it, and it's not a long career. It's not a starving for 20 years. It's kind of starving for 2, and then they. That's
actually a lot of entertainment. It's not just manga. You look at how many actors are out there versus how many are famous, and the odds are just astronomically against you. God bless everybody who tries and fails, and God bless everybody who makes it. It's just the nature of the beast.
But that makes the ideological nepotism all the worse, because when someone like writer for She-Hulk or Kathleen Kennedy or someone like that rises to the top, you got to wonder how many actually good writers or directors or would-be actors have they stepped on the way to co-opting an entire freaking industry.
Yeah. Well, nepotism is actually something that a lot of people didn't talk about, but we're not going to right now. We're going to move forward.
And that, in effect, is what a lot of comics would look like. The people who are successful, Oda and others, are incredibly rich and do well because the industry rewarded, what they brought to the market.
Right.
And so you do not see people living kind of at the bottom feeder level for long. And with comics, we've got a system that allows that.
Yeah.
But now, so what do you think it changes? Or are we living like this forever?
I think we're in year 2 of a 5-year window where we're looking for something new. And I want distillery to do well. Honestly, I want Comixology to have done well. I welcome even Image. Like I want Marvel, DC. I want more competition, so I have to work harder, and then we all get better. And rising tides raise all ships. I'm really not dunking on anybody. I'm just sort of asking questions about what we could have done better. But yeah, one of the things that I wanted to try was this like a hybrid publishing system. Usually the way that I make money is we do the floppy through Image. Image pays me from their coffers. And then we collect it into a trade. So that's round 2. And then we sell it to Europe. That's round 3. And then later on, maybe we have like this 11x17 edition or a deluxe edition, and that's like round 4. But what I realized was, well, I don't need to pay someone to be my agent to sell it to Europe. And why don't I just sell the end product first through Kickstarter? And now Massive doesn't have to pay me out of their coffers.
Of course, this is something that was said when DNC and Ethan first jumped in. Hey, look, guys, this is viable. We get paid through Kickstarter. And the other benefit of this is we're able to take chances on products that most publishers won't touch. Like an 11x17 artist edition is too big, too expensive for publishers to try out on. I get that. And then doing a masterclass edition we have, which is $200. It's like a college course, all in one book. Like everything I got teaching wise, I want to put it in one place. I'm excited by that idea, but again, I don't think Image or most publishers would mess with that because it's a lot of money up front. Yeah. So I'm not really crowdfunding. I'm taking pre-sales. And I think using Kickstarter is fun because it has the grassroots feel. You can sort of adjust it along the way. A 30-day campaign, you can kind of tweak some of the dials. I try to listen to the feedback too to make sure I can at least make people feel like they're heard. So then that's round 1. Round 2 is I can sell that to Europe and give. Okay. I might just skip through this. Seems a lot of inside baseball. I'm kind of bored with this.
I will say I like the idea of starting with the prestige format and basically treating comics like a regular book.
Your name is going to matter,
right?
Pretty heavy to get the ball rolling. And then I think the second piece is you have to have at least be organized and have some business sense, or at least somebody you could talk to who has some business sense.
Like BT Dubs, when I sat down, we went to Bongo's, Gloria Estefan's restaurant, me and Tim Lim and Mark Pellegrini and Doug Ernst. And it was kind of funny because Tim was talking about, well, if you decide to do this, you have to come up with a name, then check to see if the name's under copyright or is it trademarked. And then you have to, and he's just went through the whole thing, all the little details you don't think, because you think, I'm going to make a comic, write it, draw it, let's get kickstarted, and what else happens, and that's probably why there's so many delays, because somebody goes, all right, we're ready to go. Oh, okay. No,
and then
and here we
red
go.
tape. Yeah. That's one of the reasons why me and my buddy, the brainstormer of pop culture, are taking so long to write our comic, which is going to be called The Lionhearted. I don't talk about it much because it's still kind of in the conceptual planning stages. But yeah, me and he are planning on doing a comic, and it's taking forever, but the end result should be something pretty freaking amazing. So fingers crossed.
Rhaegar saying, see, the thing I don't like is the false dichotomy. We can be fans of a thing, then criticize it. That does happen, yes. Then want to burn if they not only dismiss the old audience, but heckle them as their thanks to us. Yeah, I get the feeling there. Clint saying, I'm fine with the industry failing, and I do not expect indie stuff to take its place. The bigger companies will outsource their books to a creator studio with a reinforced Bible and standards. Okay, I see where you're coming from on that one. A lot of people are talking about whether or not they farm characters out to other creative publishers. I don't know if that would ever happen or work, because who's bigger or as big as DC and Marvel? Now you could say, okay, let's put it to and I'm just using this as an example. You throw it to a Dynamite and see what Dynamite can do with characters. But ultimately, DC and Marvel are the ones that have and are steering the ship. Think of it as an industry bankruptcy restructuring. The most higher ups release all of the ticks and leeches that killed their product and build a new ship. That can also be done by a cleaning of the house. You need an editor, and by that I mean an editor-in-chief, somebody who's hired on that is not afraid to go, you know what, you guys need to go. We are like when they did the New 52 and they said we're going to be doing 8 books a week. Let's for this month, 2 months down, we're going to only be doing 8 books a week. And while we're doing that, we're going to restructure. We're going to bring in some new people. Maybe we'll even go back to the conventions and start looking for talent, because this whole 4chan talent thing isn't working. We can't get our writers and artists from the young adult novel people anymore. Let me move forward here.
Like when I talk to you.
Well, not me. Yeah. Oh, you just need a good business manager partner. I don't know why we can't set that up for you. It's probably some asshole letting you down. Just speculating. But I think this model is very solid, and I think the names you mentioned, Reminder should be all over this. Scott and Tinian, and there's a bunch of people I think who could run this same play.
Right. Yeah, James too.
Yeah, this probably is the bridge in that 5 years. I don't think this is the new model, but I do think it's the path to that new model.
The weird thing I see about this, I used to I when there were strikes in sports, I would always say I love the scabs. I really do, because they're more like me playing with my friends out in the lot and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, it's an interesting form of watching football and baseball when it's not played by the perfect professionals, But what I'm getting at here is that if you get all these artists and these writers who do use the Marvel and DC now as a platform to start their own Kickstarter, their GoFundMe, or whatever you want, it's going to end up being like that. It's going to be so separated. We're so used to Marvel and DC. Marvel has thousands of characters under their banner, which might show up in each thing. And from here on in, it's going to be like the Millerverse. You're going to have a handful, but they're going to be cultivated and written in a certain way. I don't know. I think I agree with Perch. I don't see that being as the model, but maybe it will be the start of something new, which we'll see down the lane.
Yeah, and if it does turn out that the big two wind up flopping, I hope that will mean the IPs themselves go into public domain, or better yet, go into financial turnaround, so that someone who cares about these characters can actually, maybe through Kickstarter or something like that, buy them and treat them right. Because I will start a Kickstarter to buy every single Magic user in both companies if I have to. God damn it.
Oh, by the way, I just remembered what I was going to say, and it's because Rhaegar's comment here. He says Marvel and DC Bud Lighted their industry, but there's no indication that they realize that they understand and will correct the mistake. At least Bud Light knows, even though image is damaged forever. By the way,
and that's
let me get this comment before I lose it. Okay. There was something that somebody said, and it's been grabbed. I don't even know if people remember where it came from. But somebody had said, well, you can't give the audience what they want. You gotta subvert their expectations. Not Ryan Johnson. But the point, what ended up happening was it went from you have to subvert their expectations to never give the audience what they want. And
spite the audience.
Yeah, when the problem with what has become you can't give the audience what they want and what they don't understand about it is, no, you do have to give the audience what they want, but you have to give it to them in a way they didn't know they wanted. Unfortunately, it's become you are the audience. You're dumb.
You're scum. You're immoral. You're
you
stupid.
have no idea what you want. And I'm going to tell you what you really want is Fire and Ice life in Smallville. All right, let me move forward just a little. Oh, and Clinton's saying his idea for the comic book industry is being played out with Valiant. I got to tell you, for a little bit there, I really thought Valiant was going to at least come in and make a difference a little bit. But then they hired Antos.
Not just that, but they also kicked out the guy who revamped Valiant.
Venditti? No.
No. It was Dinesh.
Ah, okay. Dinesh D'Souza? Really? Wow.
No.
I'm kidding.
I know.
Right, let's move on.
For me, very well with what I've set up. And I'm happy to share the fruits of my knowledge and my mistakes with anybody who wants to listen.
Mm-hmm.
But this is not the way that an industry can survive. Like, I'm a lone assassin, but we need an industry that can run an army, Yeah. So I don't have the holy grail here. It's just something.
I like the fact that earlier he says, well, I don't want to be arrogant or anything. And he's just, well.
Well, I mean, to some degree, that's inevitable. But yeah, it's a little bit.
Yeah, but here's the thing: if you're one of the only comic book artists and writers giving people what they want, and by the way, Sean Gordon Murphy really jumped into the fray with his takes on Batman, the White Knight, and all that kind of stuff. And so right away he said, "Okay, I'm going to give you what you want, but in a way you didn't know you wanted it." So he did that right off the freaking bat, and he created a world where now he has to find a new way to do that, because now we know what we want, what you've given us before, but how are you going to give us the same thing in a way we don't want it? So
that's at least part of the problem with writers and authors who establish themselves is once they get so deep into the industry, they don't like giving what they gave before.
Mm-hmm.
And after so many iterations and reinventions, they wind up getting out of touch and deliberately overly artsy.
Yeah.
To the point that like Alan Moore does, or Neil Gaiman is getting to, where it's like, if I leave my best successes alone, that makes me a bad author somehow or something.
I think Alan Moore kind of lost.
Grant Morrison counts too. No, I was saying like Grant. I think like Grant Morrison also belongs in that category as well.
Well, yeah, but that's what I mean. It gets to the point where they value their own artistic ego over actually delivering anything of quality, and it works for the movie industry too. Look at Martin Scorsese. Opens his mouth and says something stupid every 5 minutes, but can't keep in touch with what the audience actually wants, because that's not artsy enough. Derp.
Yeah. Okay. So let's move on.
Thing that I've cooked up with in the meantime. And I mean, I don't have a digital strategy, for example. That's something that's beyond my capability to control. Like some of the things I want. I don't like doing variants, but we did a ton of variants here because shops came to me and said, yeah, variants is a gimmick, but that pays the bills. So yes, get Adam Hughes and Humberto Ramos to do a variant. So I'm doing what I said I would never do, just because.
So proud of you. Yes.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. I feel like I let you.
By the way, the reason why it does pay the bills is because in a lot of cases, the pricing on variants, I found out, is very arbitrary. Seriously. I mean, now they say that there's a certain pricing because, of course, if you have to order 50 copies, you just go, okay, well, these 50 copies, I've got this one book. The cost of 50 copies is this, so that book is worth that. But otherwise, yeah, they can mark it up to whatever they want.
An asshole should help you out with digital too. But so back kind of to how we opened up. If we're now predicting the next 10 years, so here'd be a little prediction. I think there will be a handful of people like yourself.
In the year 2000.
Now see, you're dating yourself here. Flies right over the head of all of my audience. Like you were mentioning earlier, I'm dreading turning 45. I'll tell you that.
I would be like, hello, 45, my old friend. I missed you.
And I'm sitting here dreading 30 like it's the coming of the
Reaper. I think as you
Reaper.
play this out, you're going to have a small handful of people that are going to play like you did. And I think it was a lot of the names you mentioned. Millar will do it. I think, I think James would do it. I think there will be a handful of people to do it. Donnie, maybe Donnie does it. Right? Anyway, we get a handful of people who do this. And what will happen is you're going to get some solid money, and each person is going to try something slightly different. So, you talked about the kind of the different steps you have. Somebody will toss open a small, solid digital step as part of it. And somebody will toss in some kind of box store step.
Right.
And then as those things form, I think what will happen is somebody, kind of like Todd did way back in the day, is going to look at this and go, well, I like making comics, but I actually think I have an aptitude for this business stuff. And so what I could do is actually gather a bunch of the people together rather than everybody doing their own efforts with Kickstarter. And I could actually make a publisher that thinks this way and puts books out this way. And, screw Diamond, I'm going to start here. And this is going to be the new model. And I think that.
So his prediction for the next 10 years is that somebody's going to come up with Image Comics.
Well,
Just saying, that's what he just described, isn't it?
And again, we have here an example of someone getting out of touch. The only good idea he can come up with is, if we just do the thing we did in the 90s over again, that'll work.
This time it's going to be the Image Comics for Kickstarter and such like that. But I already mentioned that what we're going to get is, what we're getting here is a whole bunch of different universes. Like right now with your streaming services. Remember how you just got everything on Netflix, and now it's like you got to get your Peacock, you got to get your Hulu and all that kind of stuff, and you're all spread out a lot. So if you bring it all in and create one big, I guess, Kickstarter publisher, maybe I misunderstood what Perch was saying here. But my problem with any kind of prediction is we only predict with the idea of our present. We predict the future through
the known unknowns as opposed to the unknown unknowns.
In 1950 or the 60s, I should say, George Jetson told us in the year 2023 we would be flying cars and so forth and so on. And Back to the Future, of course, we had hoverboards and flying cars as well. By the way,
2063, but yes.
I have seen a lot of message saying, hey, it's 2015. We should start getting those hoverboards and the flying cars already had a structure. That means we got those in like 2008 or something. So yeah, we always predict the future based on what our present is. So who knows? In all honesty, with what our present is, will there be comics the way that we know them? Will they still be DC and Marvel? Will what Clint is talking about there with Valiant work? We have no freaking idea. But let me move on here.
Yeah,
okay?
go ahead. Sorry.
That happens, I would guess somewhere maybe 2 years from now, somebody takes a swing at that. I've got a good guess as to who might, but somebody takes a swing at it, and that becomes the new publisher. And if the pieces are lined up properly, well, the other thing that happens is I think those of you like yourself who does this model and does well with it becomes the new superstar of comics. Now, you're already well known, but what's going to happen is those people are going to elevate further. And so that becomes your new Image 6, for lack of a better word. And this becomes the new model.
So he recognizes
just a new publisher
similar as well.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so he's caught himself.
What I wanted to create with Massive. And there's talk of me buying in or taking over. I don't know how long it'll be with Massive. I'd like to start my own company and hand this stuff off to someone to just do this stuff. Like I'll be the face of it because I'm not wired. I'm already doing more than I want to do. I don't like the different hats I have to wear every day. It's exhausting. But I feel like if I could clinch the digital thing and get some kind of big box management and then consolidate everything under one roof and then give creators a model and just be like, we're going to do all this stuff for you. We're going to have better marketing, Marvel and DC, and we'll get you into Walmart. But you need to show up for these things and you got to let us take care of the rest and we will take a chunk. Like, I think that a company like that could grow big enough to maybe even go to Marvel and DC and offer to distribute their stuff back into stores. You know, I mean, you could sort of, you're stepping off the racetrack and going ahead of Marvel and DC in a different, but in the end, you're going to get there first. Someone that can consolidate all these ideas.
Yeah, I can see juggernauts like Marvel and DC having hard time steering the boat. It's just a bigger boat. So you would have to get a lot more pins in a row or whatever you want to call it. I don't know the saying, but you get what I
yeah,
mean.
and like I said, if and when it ever comes down to having to sell off some IPs for the sake of solvency, guys, let me know. I will buy all of the Magic users from you for the sake of my own peace of mind, if nothing else.
Yeah.
Will they only just the Magic users?
Going ahead?
Yes.
All right. Let's see. Rhaegar's complaining about his neighbors. Undead Quinn is saying, I don't see comic book buyers as older readers as much less younger ones. Clint is saying Harbinger, the movie's last update was last year as it moved from Sony to Paramount. As far as that's concerned, Clint, with a lot of stuff announced, I don't believe it until after I've seen it. I do not believe that the movie's in theaters until after I've seen it. There's just too many things announced that just don't come to pass. So,
especially now with the writers and actors strikes every 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's go forward.
Ideas we're talking about, and then force Marvel and DC to come to them.
Well, we should find that person.
Well, yeah, force is a strong word, but like you want to show them how there's better ways to make money and everybody is happy.
Yeah.
And I really want someone to get there, and it doesn't have to be me. I just wish that would come together and coalesce. But
what would you guys think? And I'm asking the chat here. What would you think if somebody were able to rent or license a character, I guess that would be, from Marvel and DC and do a Kickstarter for them and do their own version of it?
Like I said, I would do it. You know, I would be the Magic specialist for the entire comic book industry if it would let me.
Okay.
Or I don't know. It's just the conversation is not in the right. I think you're right. People want this industry to be cozy.
Yeah.
Whether they know it or not. They don't want cheap comics for normies on spinner racks. They want expensive comics for less of a crowd of specialized nerds that we can hang out with.
I can honestly say, as a reader of 50 years, I would prefer the cheap comics for normies than I would, because a lot of the specialty books aren't all that fucking special. I'm sorry, but there is a reason why I don't take a lot of leaps into the $30 graphic novel by some guy on YouTube. I just don't.
See, but that's
a lot of times it ends up to being a mediocre to a crap comic. Not once have I heard, except for with Common America, not once have I heard oh my God, you've got to read this. It's awesome. If I'm wrong about that, let me know. I'm not talking about a bunch of fans who like the book by the guy that they've been following on YouTube, but even Nothing by Rich, even Ethan Van Sciver with his Cyber Frog, there were a lot of complaints. At first, there was a lot of complaints about the structure of the comic, but the book inside, nobody was like, woo, best ever. I have not heard anything that tells me that any of these books are worth $50 or something.
And yeah, that's basically the only problem at this point. I actually like the idea of putting comics in a prestige format and treating them like a regular, book, but the content has to be up to par in order to get there. Mm-hmm. Otherwise it doesn't make sense. there are older books that definitely deserve that treatment. Look at the DC Golden Age Archive editions. Look at the EC Comics collections. Look, basically everything on my freaking shelf.
That's by proven properties as well.
Yeah. But if the actual content isn't up to par, you can pretty up a pig only so far, as the old saying goes. Put lipstick on the pig.
Saying EVS and Ripa were considered mid. I was going to do a review, but then I saw not Nerdy Texan, Nerdette's Newsstand talk about how Ripa seems to be a copyright claimer. If somebody talks about his books, the f is that about? Clint's defending one. Aaron Lepresti's Wrath of God blew me away. Of all the CG titles, it's the only one I really, really loved. Okay, that's something to look for. It depends on who is licensing the character for Kickstarter, says Maranya. A Venditti or a Jeremy Adams. Hell yeah! Insert the name of the worst of fish. Vita Ayala goes, you know what? I want to write a Punisher story. That is something to run from. That is I don't think I've ever heard anything more scary as Vita Ayala doing Punisher as, ladies and gentlemen, Celine Dion with Whole Lot of Love. I just could not understand that would be.
That actually gave me like a full body cringe just now, the idea of that happening.
Yeah, it just wouldn't work. All right, let's move forward.
I mean, how much of it is, I heard this analogy at one point, which is comic professionals, they go to the convention and they get a really cool party. And it's kind of a celebration for them. It's like their prom.
Yeah.
You know, and they get like 3-4 of those a year.
Yeah.
What we need are people who really wants one of those every weekend, because it is truly Wall Street and you are just making money hand over fist. And every day is that party. And every day is that.
Yep.
90% correct, at least. Even if you're 50% correct, it's at least more to chew on than we get from Twitter, Facebook, and the rest of it.
Maybe a little bit
intelligent and be able to break these things down in a clear, simple, fun way. And I think for the average 15-minute long dunk fest on YouTube, it's just easier to point to Brie Larson. I think this stuff's interesting. I think that's probably why your channel has so much success, is you bring a professorial, educated look at these things with your earned knowledge, and because we don't get to hear educated breakdowns in comics for the most part.
None
People come
taken,
to you,
John.
you know, and even if you're 90% correct, at least, even if you're 50% correct, it's at least more to chew on than we get from Twitter, Facebook, and the rest of them, you know?
Well, it's also the charm of listening to car noises in the back.
Okay, it just popped in my head. And I get what he's saying, by the way. And he probably doesn't watch videos or anything else. But I'm going to call out my boy. Gary, I love you. I know I take a lot of shots. But here's the thing. Gary and the Black Pills, still the greatest 50s band name ever. Kind of think of them like how people are reacting to the Marvel cinema. Like you mentioned Martin Scorsese and everything. I can't wait to see his new movie. I know it's out right now. So they're kind of like them. They're the big dogs as far as all of this is concerned right now. It is shifted over. They're getting hundreds of thousands of views and so forth and so on. Even if you don't watch their videos, if you are a comic book video watcher, you're probably getting recommended their videos left and freaking right. You don't need to watch the videos because the thumbnails tell the tales. They're the same font, they're the same color. Everything is absolutely the same except for, you know, Nerdy's got his yellow circle with glasses and so forth and so on.
Yeah, the guy I like the most out of that set is probably the little platoon, because he actually does go deep into the analysis.
Let me finish my point. Okay, but the point being is that it starts to feel much like the people who want independent cinema and all that kind of stuff. It starts to feel that the only kind of comic book content out there are them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Wes, of course, and Perch have carved off a good little corner of it. God bless them. Hope, wish nothing but success for them. Wish I could have that success again. But it really does, after a while, just feel like it's, oh God, look, they're doomed, they're dead, they're doomed, they're dead, they're insane, they're crazy, they're scared, they're whatever. There's only like 4 or 5.
It's the guy on the side of the road screaming "The end is nigh," and one of these days he's going to be right.
It's
But
always
sure,
the same thing. And after a while, it's like, okay, been there, done that, bought the T-shirt. Okay, let's move on. And if you're a casual, maybe even like Sean, I would don't know if Sean's like big on in. Oh, I'm going to watch every video of. I doubt it, because he's writing comics and such. But if you are casual and that's all you're seeing, you could believe that that is the majority of comic book channels. I've got news for you, kids. It's not. There is a whole other universe out in YouTube that is actually having fun when they're reading comic books. They're actually enjoying stuff. They're searching for the good things. I used to do, I'll do another one, but I used to do videos when we were always talking about bad stuff that would be like top 10 Marvel comics that you should be reading right now, which would be something amazing because we're talking bad about Marvel all the time. Can there be 10 comics that, or what about, best DC books? I mean, you got Shazam out there. You got Green Lantern, Green Arrow, anything green, except for Fire. And the Green Lantern with Alan Scott, those two do suck. But the point being is there is good stuff. I just read a graphic novel called Slash 'Em All, which was really good. It's a new book. There's good stuff out there, and there's a lot of people enjoying and having fun talking about comics. And instead, what you're getting is Gary and the Black Pills. All right, let's move on a little bit.
Background. Well,
yeah, that too.
Repeating myself because I got distracted by some guy with his pants off on the side of the road, and so I just start repeating the same thing over and over again.
There you go. And your religious disdain for Arby's.
Yeah, well, of course. I've shown up in so many places. I love the business talk. I think people love it when you talk business, and I think mainly they're surprised that you're willing to talk business because it's been 40 minutes now. Can we get your opinion on Israel?
Yeah.
Ooh, do we dare comment?
I will comment insofar as there is someone I probably should show for who talks a lot about the business side of things. His name is
That
Cole.
wasn't what I was talking about.
Well, but
go on ahead.
But there's a guy by the name of Culture Casino who definitely is on the business end of things, and he doesn't get nearly as much love as he should. But
I have what I was talking about is I have yet to weigh in on the Israel conflict on YouTube.
I see.
If you've seen some my Facebook posts and Twitter, that's a different story. But I've kept it away from here because last time I talked politics honestly, I got shadow banned.
Yeah, I'll have to requisition myself a fuck to give about in either direction, honestly, on that topic.
So Clint is saying a Vita Punisher title would be the craziest blaxploitation cringe train wreck on the level of Gabby's America Chavez. Yes! 6 pages of a black woman with dyed pompadour lecturing Frank about oppression. Droon says these guys are stroking each other. Sean is right on this with some people, says Undead Quinn. Verbal strokes, that is, Drawn says. Let's see. Then we find out the black guy back in the 50s was really the first Punisher who hunted down white people. Let's see. They can't all be lying to us, says Rhaegar. Aren't they doomed? I saw 18,000 videos about it. Right. It's a joke, but it's not far off. You don't know the new lingo. I get the YT. I saw that. And by the way, I'm gonna say something controversial here. I'm gonna say something that might actually lose me my entire audience. I don't know how many we got. 9 people watching here. Everybody's gonna leave. Rachel Zegler is a very talented girl. How many do we still have? Point being, no, I'm sorry, but I saw West Side Story. I know she can sing. I know she can act. I will go so far. I will say this: it's not 100% her fault. Bear with me. Did you guys notice that Wonder Woman, Gal Gadot, was saying exactly the same thing that she was. But when all of the controversy started, Gal Gadot shut the f up. I think that they were sent out with a script. And I think Rachel, she just leaned into it. She took the brunt, and now everybody's going off on her. Well, I honestly do. In every interview, she said the same exact thing with maybe a twist. Of course, the worst being the weird, which will forever haunt her.
Here's the difference. I can believe that someone forced Gal Gadot to say stuff like that. I don't think Rachel Zegler was forced to say stuff like that.
They were in the same interview, the same 3 interviews when all of that was said. The only thing that was said with just Rachel Zegler was the weird thing.
Right, but
hold on, let me finish. That was the same venue, but with a different reporter. You can actually see Gal Gadot in the background. And then after that, nobody went after Gal. No, she said, oh yeah, it's not going to be about love. And then Rachel said, yeah, it's not going to be about love because we realize blah, blah, blah. She says exactly the same thing. We realize in 1937, both times, or all 3 times.
Because Gal knows how to talk around the talking points they give her and how to be at least nominally charming with it. Whereas Rachel Zegler, being a millennial or Zoomer, actually seems to believe half the propaganda they tell her to spew, and the fact that she looks almost identical to AOC probably doesn't help matters either.
Yeah, she's
Am I the only one who noticed that they look almost exactly the same?
The only one.
I like Clint basically solved it. Gal's hot, she gets the pass. There you go. All righty, let's move on here.
I have so many Jewish friends that are so pissed off about it is splitting liberals, honestly. It is funny how I think liberals are reading this as poor people versus rich people, and you want
Skip.
Yeah, or I'm going to talk about it.
Get in for free, man. You're my
No.
You're my date.
Oh, come on now. I'm definitely coming to. I'll buy a taste here.
No, you're pretty blonde, man. Or is it gray? I can't tell.
Yeah, a little bit of both. Yeah.
Okay, now
no,
they're
do not pay.
Are they flirting?
For helping me out over the years.
I have met gay men who flirt less than these two do.
Warm water before bed. Shrinks a swollen prostate over.
Silence this so I could get past the 5 seconds. There we go.
Yeah, it's okay. It doesn't cost me that much.
Yeah. I mean, I just think if you are, again, it's things that you would do differently. If you're one of the big 2 right now and you're looking to gain a one up on the other, you have to recognize that there's 50,000 classic comic fans out there who largely are not getting anything for them.
There's very
who
rare.
come from the past. Now, maybe some of them are dead, who knows, but a lot of them are hanging in there if the comic shop's any indication. Hire 4 people in your company and pay them, minimum wage or just whatever, New York livable wage. And say, you're going to go take care of Louis Simonson, you're going to go take care of Walt, and you're going to go take care of, some of these creators, and you're going to wrangle Chris Claremont. You're going to go find John Byrne, and we're going to get a cover out of him every month. And your sole job is just make sure he can answer the email, get the thing in on time, scan it, whatever, just figure out. And you would easily pay for those people.
That's a part-time job at best. That's not even full. You can work from home.
By the way, you find me a publisher that can get the band back together, and I'm in. You want to talk about a $50 freaking graphic novel I would buy? You get a $50, you get a graphic novel with all of the greats from the 70s and 80s that are still around. Maybe that's a $50. I mean, I buy omnibuses. But yeah, I'm sorry, and never say an unkind word about Louise Simonson, whatever, and Walt and John Byrne for all the assholeness I've heard about him. Brought the freaking work, man. Seriously, let's move.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, hire these people from somewhere not New York and just let them the thing is, a lot of people who really are comic lovers or love the history, there's people that intern to do this shit. There's people who will line up to do it for free. Like, I have to answer Walt's email once a week. Yeah.
Right.
Yes, thank you. That is what I've been saying for years now. People would pay Marvel or DC to let them do it, and yet Marvel and DC don't bite because those people are the toxic fans who are supposed to be immoral, don't you know?
Yeah, imagine.
Go
ahead. Sorry.
But not to mention like as we've seen observed for a good long while. Well, Marvel and DC as well as Image, they have since like lowered their quality control. Like they're not only hiring the best people for the job, but they're not really looking at the quality objectively.
You know, a long time ago, when I was a younger man, I really hated the idea of anyone getting their hands on Batman or Superman or that wasn't DC, Marvel. I would hate to have Spider-Man in public hands. But nowadays I'm kind of different on it just because I want to see what happens. I mean, I'm not talking about like you can go online right now and see a video of Mickey fucking Minnie. Don't give me that stuff. You definitely have rules when you
fan fiction,
something.
Basically.
Yeah, you can't hurt the character would definitely be a rule if you're licensing out a character. But I would love to see, because at this point in time, two companies that I absolutely know don't care about Spider-Man and Batman are Marvel and DC. They care more about their message. They care more about their politics. So by all means, I'm A-okay with it. License it out to people who actually care. But they might actually go, well, yeah, I can't give you Spider-Man. See, you voted for Trump twice, and that just is wrong. You know, Spider-Man would never vote for Trump. Therefore, you would not be able to write Spider-Man. And they would do that.
I actually got in an argument with someone on Twitter once because I made a meme joke that if John Constantine actually existed, he probably would have voted leave on Brexit. And someone laid into me over it. And I'm like, no, I can explain to you with like 20 or 30 years of the character's history why that would fit John's personality perfectly. Stop treating it like a virtue signal, please.
Clint, I'm getting the idea that you're not a big Perch fan. He said Perch is in a Dom sub relationship with Mumbles. Let's see. Regar saying I have ways of bypassing advertising. He likes to listen to long form videos and hates commercials. Do you drive for a living? Because I remember when I was, I would buy radio plays and all that kind of stuff when I was delivering papers. It would be like 8 hours of driving, and I loved listening to long form. I'm serious. My blood pressure rises if I'm watching a video and obviously you're not driving if you're watching, and they get to a really deep conversation and suddenly the ads pop in. Yeah. Sometimes YouTube does it, by the way. They'll put in extra ads and all that kind of stuff. So Marvel and DC did lower that. They absolutely did. Let me continue here.
The problem is I feel like we get people who do this for free, which seems nice, but it also means they don't have an investment in it, and they're not necessarily the best talent. And if someone who's good at coordinating and being a gopher, that person should be getting paid. So you want to have them have an investment in it, like maybe not stock options, but giving them a performance bonus of some kind to make sure that they're serious and not dicking around on Twitter all the time.
Well, yeah, I mean, even if you did look, you're responsible for getting Walt covers put together, and you get 2%.
Yeah. I mean, if you can get a burn cover once a month, I imagine whatever X-Men book that has a burn cover, that cover alone will sell an extra 10, 20,000 copies. The percentages of Marvel is going to be getting royalties is more than enough to pay for that extra assistant to ride John Byrne's ass. So I say, well, I meant John Burns. Sorry. But both of them. Yeah. Yeah, it pays for itself.
I mean, there's people on the John Byrne forums that post every day there for the last 10 years who you give them a.
By the way, I'm on John Byrne's page and on Facebook, and he is not kidding. People find, and here's a picture John Byrne drew as a 5-year-old, and they'll post that shit.
A cut too, so they have some skin in the game, and again, they'll do it all day long.
Yeah.
You get some money. And then you get you can hold your nose and not have to deal with John Byrne inside the Marvel editorial office if that bothers you.
Yeah.
Somebody's in between doing it. It feels like there's a lot of really easy things, but Zorro's doing very well. This has been a book we talked about Zorro, I want to say at least 4 years ago. You were excited for it.
Yeah, so we're 250,000 in. I want to hit 400 by the end.
Okay, hold on.
ZPI.
Yep. Buy the Zorro book if you want. That's the basic message here.
Right.
But I think there's a way to give wrestling people a comic, but you have to do it online or on Amazon. They just want to have something to click. They don't want to find a comic book shop. So I think the right way to do a wrestling book is to do what I did with Zorro. And so, for example,
answering your comment to your comic, McDonald's is going to be motivated to move that comic and get in front of people to make a return on their marketing. So they're going to be open to things like selling it in a McDonald's or putting it in a Happy Meal, wherever else you want to do.
Yeah.
And so every step just gets the comic more places.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry, but as someone who loves and respects comics, the thought of getting a comic in a Happy Meal disturbs me because we all know the trials of the grease.
Yeah, it would definitely have to be in a couple of layers of plastic. Yeah, once the fries hit. By the way, is it just me or does McDonald's really drop the ball on the fries? They just taste like shit.
You're not wrong.
They used to be like and I don't like McDonald's food except for the McRib. I would still go, yeah, I could get some fries. The fries were good, but now, yeah, they dropped the fucking ball, man. By the way, Clint saying I used to drive for a living. Graphic audio was my jam. I agree. Also, I like the old radio shows. I loved listening to George Burns, and they used to do movies. Like I had one that did like It's a Wonderful Life and all that stuff. But my favorite was the Death and the Death and Life of Superman, the Death and Return. They did that, and it was so freaking cool. I loved listening to the superhero adventures and such on that. Yeah. All right. And yeah, the Superman and Batman radio plays were a big thing. All right. So let's move forward.
People would say, how come we don't see TV ads for comics? Well, we actually had ads for White Knight, Curse of the White Knight, Volume 2 on Comedy Central and some other channel. And they had an animated Batmobile of mine. It was really cool to see. They let me pick the voiceover, just whatever. But it didn't move any units, honestly. Yeah. And people think, well, how come when you go to see a movie, when you're watching the Avengers, how come there isn't a code on the screen, or why don't they give out comics there? I don't necessarily think that would work, actually, but I appreciate the thinking. Like that's the right
my
mindset.
Is,
but we need better ways.
You wanted to talk. You go first, and I'll go.
The problem is, unfortunately, the moment to take advantage of the comic book movie boom passed, because when the person who got into it from the movies went to their local comic book shop or their local Barnes and Noble to read up on the character, they were told, oh, by the way, this character's dead, or oh, by the way, this character has lost their powers for the 500th time in a row, or oh, by the way, this character's unworthy of their own mantle, or oh, but and on it went. And that was what the mistake was. If the quality was, like 80s, 90s, for all that the 80s and 90s had their edgier than should be advisable moments, they also had, DC Vertigo and Marvel's, what was the Midnight Suns, the Max label, and so on and so forth. Like, if it were that level of quality, then you would have seen synergy there. The problem is the writers that were in charge and the editors at the time made every choice they could have possibly made to avoid creative synergy.
Okay, I'm gonna move on.
Ways to do it than just slapping it on TV where it's gonna get drowned out.
Yeah, no, I agree. And you have to, if for these kinds of things,
I would say then don't slap it on TV. Put, like you said, the time has passed. But how about during Green Arrow and Flash and all that kind of stuff? Find the superhero TV show and advertise comics during that.
for people who are normies or they're not buying comics. You have to give them the way to immediately get the product if you want to hook them. If you, the idea at a movie theater is like, hey, you're going to put a QR code up and then you scan the QR code and then it takes you to an ad for where your local comic shop is. And then you can get in the car and drive to that local comic shop. Then you can buy a comic. All right. So already 3 of those steps, nobody's going to do.
Right.
So you have to make it a lot more immediate. I think it was Jimmy Palmiotti. I think he's one that says, you know, why don't they sell comic books in the movie theater? Well, sure. I think that's not terrible. You can put it there with candy and other things, and you get a habit. But the movie theater is in the process of dying right now, so that's not the lily pad to jump onto.
Right.
Well, before this year, though, the movie theater was thriving anytime a superhero movie came out. And still, they're not doing horrible. They're just not doing as well as they used to. And I've said before, The Flash was a bomb based on the budget. Same with Little Mermaid. You know, there's a different kind of bomb coming out now. They're just too damned expensive. Put some Indiana Jones comics out there. People were going to see that movie. The budget was too big.
Well, and on the other side of the possible aisle here, the issue is the same creative issues that are afflicting the comic book industry are also afflicting the movie industry, as we've seen. I mean, look at the most recent South Park episode with the Cartman having nightmares about Kathleen Kennedy. For God's sake, like it's not like social justice is contained solely to the comic book industry. It is everywhere.
Maranya is saying bring back segregation. All right, let's move forward. I'm just kidding. She says of comic book genres like romance comics, sci-fi comics, horror comics, and so on at the big two. Stop making the mainstream comics line a horrible mix of all these. I like the fact that we do have a lot of different genres these days. But yeah, you don't want coffee talk in your She-Hulk book. You know, you want She-Hulking.
Well, but if it were better written, it could be sustainable like it was in the 90s. You could have a tragic element to a superhero story or a romance element to a superhero story or a horror element and so on.
If people are watching things streaming on Netflix, wherever, how do you get those people to buy a comic? And the answer is if there's any kind of 3 steps to get the book, you people won't do it. So you have to get them in other places. And
it's like saying join Ko-Fi versus, hey, I've got stuff on YouTube.
That is why manga and the Tankōmon stuff worked so well, is that it was small, it was digest size, they really hovered outside the train. People are getting on the train for an hour ride. You want something to do.
Comic book digests in vending machines. How about that?
You know, bingo, there's a product right there for you.
Right. Yeah.
And so you have to look for those opportunities. And anyway. So Outlaw Zorro. Well, this is you. Is this the autobiography of you?
And they're simping for each other again. It's all very romantic and good for them, and I'm happy for them.
But that's normal. That's like any talk show on late night or anything. They invite guests on because they've got a new movie or a book or something like that.
No, I know. I'm making fun of the honestly kind of bromance vibes that are going on, and I can do that because I'm gay. Goddamn it.
Of a proof of concept. But Zorro is sort of like testing it out full on, and it's really great. We're trying to figure out like cheaper ways to distribute to Europe, but that might be tricky. And Plot Holes is a weird book. It's a weird pitch. It's not as clean as an idea as Zorro, Man of the Dead. Like, I know what Plot Holes is. I know it's not for everybody, but even that is doing. I know that's where Comicsgate goes. And at the time, that month, I have to refund you, and that's a pain in the ass. So I went back to Kickstarter because your money isn't withdrawn until the 30th day. So that's the only reason. I don't really care about the political stuff at all.
No, I mean, I've experimented with
Sorry about that. I hit that by accident.
I think I'd want to like Indiegogo more, but damn it, there are some, if you are a kind of disciplined finance person, that thing drives you crazy.
Yeah. Did it again?
Yeah, it's not perfect. That's, man, I think that's one of the, when people started coming after me, it was because I mean, I didn't know that Indiegogo was part of this conservative thing. I know that.
Gonna rewind it
with both now as well, and I think I want to like Indiegogo more, but damn it, there are some. If you are a kind of disciplined finance person, that thing drives you crazy.
Yeah, it's not perfect. That's, man, when I think that's one of the, when people started coming after me, it was
Which
because, yeah, yeah. I mean, I didn't know that Indiegogo was part of this conservative thing. I know that's where Comicsgate goes, and at the time, my friend Doug was helping me, giving me contacts, which is super helpful. You know, and like I always say, I have conservative friends, and I try to be customer friendly. But it wasn't like I was kissing up to the other side and hoping to get. It's funny because one side is accusing me of bending the knee to SJWs, but conservatives want me to bend the knee to them too. And it's just.
By the way, I have heard this.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Yep.
This was something that absolutely did happen. Indiegogo, I'd forget which one, and I don't give a to know. But it's like Comicsgate people be like, oh no, you go there, that's bad, that's for all the SJWs, and that's it. And then of course the other side's like, oh, you're with the CG people because you go to that, blah blah blah, yada yada. You can't please anybody, so don't try.
Well, yeah, and you don't even need to be quote unquote conservative to be against social justice or what have you.
Yeah, you and my brother are against it. Were you gonna say something, Dom?
Oh no, just like. And like I concur like with the points. Because yeah, like, you don't have to be like conservative to like point out like this nonsense. Like you can be classically liberal, libertarian, moderate, or even apolitical. Also, like Indigo wasn't reserved for just conservatives, but it was like for anybody to use. Because at the time, like whenever somebody puts their project on to Kickstarter, like they get kicked out or they get blocked.
Yeah, they were actually booting people for their political views and such. So yeah, that's all right. Let's move this forward.
Just fucking sucks being in the middle. There's no one coming to my defense.
Tell me about
First time?
Yeah. That's what you're saying, man.
I feel like because I know you're.
I have no idea what
you're
you're
in the
talking
center too. I feel like you and I are in jail, and everyone wants us to join a group. You got to join the racist white guys. You got to join the black. I can't join the Hispanics.
Been there, done that.
I'm just by myself. I'm not a joiner. And every time I go into the shower, it's only a matter of time before somebody fucks me, and there's no one to come to my defense.
Well,
that's what it's like not taking quote unquote sides in comics, and it's totally unfair. Like. The fact that I'm 90% aligned with Heather Antos and all those people, like, it doesn't matter. I'm not towing the line. They're coming after me. I'm the wrong color. I'm the wrong gender. Born a male. It's like strike three.
Heard that.
Well,
Yeah, gee, what is that like, Sean?
Yeah.
You dare to say that a character named Ironheart should be in a book called Ironheart, and you're called a racist. You dare to say that a black man who has been around comics for 60 fucking years should be promoted as his own identity instead of that of his white partners, and you get called a fucking racist.
Maybe instead of turning pre-established characters gay, you could write the gay characters you already have well, or make new ones. Or better yet, maybe we could acknowledge that 1 + 1 does in fact equal 2, and bisexuality is a thing.
I think you just hate the gays. Let's move on.
It's your rugged good looks. That's the problem.
And people were mad and go after Mags. I'm only thinking of this because she's been posting a lot more lately, and I see people murmuring of like the attempted Sean Murphy takedown. And my response to that is like, I didn't have to. She blacklisted herself. After she did that to me, I called DC and I said, listen, I don't want. Should keep working with Mags. I don't want to interrupt Mags. I'm not telling you to blacklist her. I'm not, but I cannot be on a panel discussion with her. I can't be in a room with her. Like my lawyer's advising me, like I need some kind of restraining order. Like, but I don't want her career to be hurt. I just don't want her near me, And I don't go after Mags because I don't punch down. I only punch up. Like I said, plenty of risky shit against Marvel.
Okay.
How about you just don't punch at all?
Okay, I've heard this before, and what a fucking insult! Seriously. Okay, first of all, no respect for Mags Visaggio. I've read one book that he's done well, but isn't it a bit of an insult? Well, I don't punch down. I mean, you're literally right now, Sean, after saying you didn't want to be arrogant, saying that you are above Mags Visaggio. You are, in my opinion, but you are saying, anytime you say, well, I don't want to punch down, you're telling everybody that you think that the person you're talking about or the people or the
Is
group or
beneath
whatever
you by
is beneath
definition.
you.
Very much.
Okay. SGM needs to stop licking the balls of his enemy. Okay,
DC all the time. Like, obviously, I'm not afraid of kicking the bee's nest, but you know, when you're dealing with someone,
they're called testicles,
who's says they have a lot of trouble with depression and anxiety and meds, and whatever.
You don't mess with that. It's,
yeah, me going after them, like, I don't want her to do something stupid, and I'll feel, you know, like I want her to get better, you know?
Yeah.
So the same thing with a lot of like Johnny Cates or whoever. These people are troubled and need help, and I want them to get better. And if I roll my, it would be fun to pummel them in the schoolyard, but at the end of the day, they're human beings, and I just don't have time for it. And like, if I
this is a sidebar, but do you not realize that all those people that people in your industry call incels and toxic fans and every other freaking derogatory name under the sun, a lot of us also have anxiety and depression and disabilities and sexualities and every other freaking category that you claim to be sacrosanct. But we don't get any consideration, or worse, we get our identity cards taken away from us because you're not towing the correct ideological line, so you can't possibly hold this identity card.
Even if you're sitting in the middle, well, it doesn't mean you're offensive. Like, you have your own opinions, but you're not playing yourself. You're not joining it in any side. You're pointing out the absurdities, like from everybody. I mean, look at Trey Parker and Matt Smith. They've been doing this for over 20 years.
You said Smith. I think you meant Matt Stone.
Yeah, I know it was a slip of the tongue, but
different based Matt, but they are different.
So hello to Samuel Proctor saying, pretty sure they do that on purpose. They change the character's race and sexuality as a protective shield from any criticism that has to do with equality in sales. They can just accuse them, and they have been for quite a while. They need help, but they hate you, so F them, says Undead Quinn. And Maranya saying Ironheart could have been organically introduced in the lines in the line. Lila Rhodes' niece. Yeah, that would actually make sense. Would have been a canonical addition and a callback to when Rhodey took the armor. And Rhaegar says, also, they call people incels because the leftists never miss an opportunity to sexually insult someone. You remember when we were talking about what was big at the time, and it's kind of funny that women don't matter anymore. But at the time it was, you got to worry about the male gaze. You got to worry about women, blah, blah, blah. And anytime you would say, why are you drawing Captain America or Captain Marvel to look like a tall blonde man? Why are you doing that? And then all they would talk about, and I'm serious, like they would come out in full force. All you want to do is masturbate to them. Like, and it would be over and over again. I'm like, what kind of crazy fetish do you have where you're thinking about a whole bunch of comic book nerds touching themselves? We're literally saying Carol Danvers has looked a certain way for, at the time, 40 freaking years. And you completely said no. And go ahead.
Because it's a way of dehumanizing their opposition. It's a way of saying you don't have complex views or complex reasons for doing the things you do. You're a baser animal who just thinks with their dick. That's all it is. It's dehumanization. It's you are intellectually and morally inferior, therefore you might as well not be human.
I brought
up psychology. That's called projection.
So I brought up this at the comic shop the other day. I was talking to a new young lady that works there. Her name's Tao. I don't know if you're listening in or if you decided to bounce a long time ago. But I did bring up the whole Monica Rambeau versus Carol Danvers being Captain Marvel, and the fact that when they did the all new, all now, they wanted to do somebody who is more diverse. And I was thinking, oh, so they're going to reboot Captain Marvel. They can bring in Monica Rambeau, and instead they did Carol Danvers. And of course, you know what happened? They drew her taller,
the power of the white woman,
broader, and then they took away the boobs and they made her look like the Aryan poster child. And it's a bizarre thing that they insult people for, that they have done themselves. All right, let's move forward.
Set my sight on somebody, because I never do. They're going to get dogpiled like crazy. I'm like, I don't want to live with that guilt. So I just don't do anything.
You got to punch up. So start. You need to kick Kevin Feige right in the dick.
Where does he live?
Jim Lee. Well, Jim Lee. That's punching up.
Jim Lee knows karate, probably.
Yes, because he's Asian, you racist.
But that's a joke we would have made. I'll let him have it.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, come on. No, I so many of these fights. I guess I don't know if it's age or having been through this so many times, or when you cross your 8,000th video at some point, you're like, yeah, this stuff isn't fun anymore. Some of these, like I say,
that is actually a problem I've had. I see ideas that Wes and Perch, and they've been around for a while. It's not like they're brand new on the scene, but I see them come up with stuff based on, like, I'll read an article, I'll go, yeah, it's been like that for a while. When I used to be able to take 2 words that was said in a comic book and make a 15-minute video out of it, nowadays it's just like, I've done that video already. So I get it. You really do kind of get burnt out on the subject.
I wish these people would just get out. What we need is and it goes to solving kind of some of the people who are still in comics that probably should have left it by now. We need like that retirement home for comic professionals. Right. And they can go there and, Giuseppe could be there too. And like, they could just kind of put books out and, nobody needs to buy them. They're making stuff. Right. And
you give them a computer.
Neil Adams is quitting.
The retirement homes nowadays are called Marvel and DC. People are doing a lot of work. Nobody's buying it.
To the internet, but you make them think that it is.
Sure. Just some like Twitter alternate, Y or Z. Yeah. And just let them have that glory years and just start to move on in another direction.
Maybe you're the right guy to ask, but I feel like the woke stuff is starting to be over. I think that it's turning already. And I actually said that a while back. And I think a lot of people were like, the Critical Drinker was saying it.
Okay. I don't know if it's over. I think people are starting to see the man behind the curtain, so to speak. Beforehand, people were afraid of the woke. A lot of people, not everybody, and I'm going to say it. A lot of people on YouTube that talk about weren't afraid. That's why we're there to talk about. That's why we got audiences from it, because we were saying what other people were thinking. That's the way it works. As I often say, people who worship the sun are the ones that are subscribed to sun worshipers and such like that on YouTube. But I think now it's not so much that it's over, and I think we've got a long way to go. But have a good time, Ash. Good luck. But what's going on is people are not afraid to speak out anymore. They've called everybody racist already. They've called everybody sexist already.
It means nothing.
Everybody phobes already. Yeah, to the point where, you know what? It hurt the first time, but it's 1,000 times now. I've got calluses. I'm okay with taking it on the chin. I know whom of you speak. I know who I am myself. So them saying that kind of stuff doesn't hold the same weight, because now when you see somebody run for the hills, oh, look, they're running for the hills, go get them. Brr. But when people are standing their grounds, even the people who are behind those who are saying it go, oh, wow.
Well, it's also the words themselves no longer mean anything. When you take the word Nazi and apply it to everyone who supports classical liberalism or capitalism, then the word Nazi is basically a null entity at that point. And the same goes for every other morally charged buzzword. The only power these words have come from when they're used accurately. And if no one wants to use them accurately, then they're not going to maintain the same power they once had.
Yeah, Samuel, I was going to watch this because I heard about the controversies and all that kind of stuff. So I figured, why not turn the camera on and do a reaction as I watch it? And yeah, it's fun. Rhaegar saying he's falling for the okie dokie. These corporations share not stopping. They hired ironic. Well, obviously they need to, in order for it to be over, there's certain comic book writers that need to be curbed. In all honesty, I think they need to just be fired. If you're not selling, call it a day. If you're writing messages more than stories, they got to go. Now, I mentioned Stephanie Phillips. I think that she's okay, but I'm talking about like the T. Franklins, where anybody who starts the sentence as a insert
blank,
yeah, they pretty much they need to go, because they don't see humanity through any other, or most of them would not see humanity through anything other than those lenses of as a this, as a that, you are a this, therefore you
identitarian hive minds, platonic oversouls, basically.
There you go. All right, let's move on.
It, and a lot of people were saying it, and then Ethan Van Sciver said no way, but then I realized, oh, Ethan makes money, he needs people to be upset, so he doesn't want it to be over, and that's all right. That's his jingle. But you're
okay, so I need to comment on this. This was the big thing. This caused the huge controversy.
Oh, why am I not surprised?
By the way, I actually came out of the closet 2 days ago. My wife's dealing with it. I'm just kidding. It was a long time before that. But the thing is I actually said that Tim Sheridan, we all heard him do his "buy my book or you're not gay" thing. He got blasted for the way he was selling it. My tweet on the whole subject was, he's doing the same thing that Young Rippa did. He's doing the same thing that Ethan Van Sciver did. Shit that Richard did. DNC, when they first put out the comics.
Buy our books or you're not anti-woke or anti-SJW.
Yeah, the books, Young Rippa did not make $3 million based on the quality of a comic book. He made $3 million based on the fact that he was freaking Young Rippa. And he was speaking the truth to power, grr, and all that kind of stuff. Now, maybe number 2 was based on a little bit more quality than that. Maybe number 3 will be as well. But that first one, Ethan Van Sciver's the same way. Ethan Van Sciver, no, okay, you know what? He's hard to sell on this particular point, because he's had, a lot. The man's a great fucking artist. I'm never going to take that away. I'm never say that he's not.
Doesn't mean that Cyberfrog was the second coming of Stan Lee, though.
But you better fucking believe that a lot of the sales came from the fact that he is standing for you. We're fighting the SJW, and the best way for you to fight the SJW is to buy my comic. That is
line my wallet.
Yeah, that's been a pitch for a long time now. So I absolutely 100% believe in the deepest parts of my heart that in order to continue the gravy train that Ethan, Gary, Heels, Babyface, Ryan Kennel, Star Wars Girl, anybody on that particular side of the fence, they absolutely will need a villain. And we've seen it with Comicsgate. When the villains dry up on the other side, we've seen it with Gamergate too. They will find villains on this side. They need the villains to go after. That is all. That's the business model. Anywho.
Fortunately, I don't think the other side is going to stop providing them villains anytime soon.
Oh no, not anytime soon. It might be drying. That woke lake bed might be drying up, but it ain't empty. Let's see. As long-term comic book reader back when they cost 12, 15, 25 cents a piece, damn it, my opinions matter, says Maranya, and we believe that. Let's see. Remember when Microsoft had the he-him No, I do not. And talked about being sorry for having buildings on native. Oh, I do remember that bit, though. It looked like hostage. It really did. If I could buy comics for 12 cents, I would be like Scrooge McDuck of comics, says Rhaegar.
Yeah, me too.
When EVS put out a book, it's pretty darn good. The kicker is he takes years to put them out and does other things instead of focusing on getting the books out on time, as he promised, like Iconic Comics do. Ethan already commented on this. He hated the heat he got. He does not want it. Nobody wants this kind of heat. I got it for 4 days. When my brother went after Captain Cummings. The problem was, instead of Captain Cummings, he wrote Diversity in Comics. For you who are new, that's comics with your boy Zach. And he was huge. So
and the internet exploded.
But the thing is, it's nobody went after my brother. They thought it was me. because the night before I had Nerd Wonder on, and there was a guy pretending he was a girl, and the reporter, and they asked a question. They said something along the lines of, what was it? I just watched 35 hours of diversity in comics videos. I don't know why I would do that. And what was it? Nerd Wonder said something, and it was along the lines of like he wanted to torture himself or something like that. And my comment was, I don't want to do 35 hours worth of something fun. And that got turned into, we were insulting DNC. My brother attacked Captain Cummings, but instead wrote DNC. And we just got bombed, man. It was nonstop. I found out about it because I was sleeping at the time, and my phone, ring, 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 ring. It was vibrating off the freaking table. It was crazy. And I got to tell you, for 2 days, I was like, just, it drains you. And then I realized, fuck it. Can't do anything about it. Just move on, man. That's it. So
and then the debate happened, and it happened for like 2 months after that.
Yeah, after I debated Ethan Van Sciver along with Undead Quinn and Jason Marona. What was
Unranked Chevron.
Unranked Chevron. Yeah, I said Undead Quinn. Unranked Chevron, and who was the guy? The other dude?
John Malin.
John Malin. There you go. Malin. Okay, yeah. Really, it just became Ethan and myself. Back and forth, and yeah, the war campaign, by the way, kind of came after me. So let's see. Gamergate never died. They are still working up the games, even changing historical things in the long-running beloved game, says Rhaegar. Maranya saying, well, if EVS doesn't want the heat, then do the damn job and stop doing everything else.
Yep.
She's not wrong.
Jay Lucian, boy, Zach is, but nah, I don't think so. At the time, he was legitimately hurt. We had a DM, private DM and everything, and he sent a message, and it sounded like he was legitimately hurt. He really did believe that we were going after him. But the thing is like you guys know around here we call it busting nuts because I made a fucking mistake instead of saying busting balls, but we do bust balls here. I love Eric, I love Venkman, I love Dalton, Dominic, I love everybody who comes on here, but we do bust each other's balls. We insult each other
all the
ruthlessly
every day. Yep.
So the thing is like I could say take Perch. We're joking about the way he's flirting, right? Because or the way it sounds like they're flirting with each other. We're joking about it. But somebody who loves Perch's videos will go over, oh my God, they're calling you gay. They're saying this and they're so raw. And it's so bad and it's so evil. And that's how they would convey a message. And
yeah, by the way, there's nothing wrong with flirting in that way. And again, I'm saying this is a gay dude. Yeah, I'm just making fun of it.
Yeah, of course you would say it. By the way, we do still laugh about the fact that Yellow Flash called Dalton a cocksucker.
That is still that is on my mental fridge forevermore. Just like
point being is we're over here going, ha 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 ha, sounds like they're flirting. And you know, if somebody has a hair up their ass, they go over and they make it sound like it's 10 times worse. That happens constantly when it comes to freaking drama. Hopefully you hope that somebody actually comes over and says, hey dude, I got a message saying you were talking about it was like hee you're flirting with some, or instead of that kind of stuff. So, and
the good news with live streams is we have the footage, so we can defend ourselves that way if need be.
All righty, let's see what Maranya is right. It takes years, and I stopped backing for that reason. Oh, with the EVS, yeah, a lot of people did. You know who has watched 35 hours of diversity and comics? This guy, not at once. The way it started with an M, I forgot the name, but it ended up being an actual dude that was posing as a female reporter, and they were saying they watched it over just to find out like bad things Richard said. I confused you for Unranked Chevron.
It was Melissa something or other, but I can't remember the last name. The fake name they used.
It started with that debate started with Unranked Chevron doing a Comicsgate is dead video, and what he was talking about was Comicsgate as you know it was dead. And since I had said something, and I had gotten complaints about this thing called the War Campaign, I never heard about it. So I had a live stream. I said, well, if you feel you need to voice something, come on. And some people were too afraid to come on to my live stream and talk about this new thing that pops up, this War Campaign, because they were afraid of any backlash. Melissa Moore,
thank you, Maranya.
Thank you, Maranya. Yeah, and that's what it started off as. And Unranked Chevron got invited, and it was going to be Ethan Van Sciver, John Malin, and Unranked Chevron. And they were talking, well, we need somebody else on our side. The whole thing is Comicsgate is dead. See, my thought when I heard that, you know, Ethan Van Sciver's here now, he's taken the Comicsgate name, and he's wanting to focus on the comic book artist and writer rather than the people who are, as he says, OGCG is they're full of shit. All they do is complain, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, well, you know what? We had enough people who were doing the same thing. Marvel started to listen. They stopped listening when the group stopped focusing on the characters that we loved and started going, hey, buy my fucking book that didn't come out until 2 fucking years later. All right. So,
and meanwhile, let the rest of everything burn. Fuck the old IPs.
But anyway, that is actually what happened. I forgot where I was going with it because that's the way my mind works sometimes. Let's see. That was some good comic video watching. I used to even hit up the live streams. I don't know why I don't love you no more, Clint, but I don't know. I stopped watching Richard's videos when I looked into Valiant after he said Faith was a fake geek girl, but she's always been geeky girl. Yes, she has. I'll tell you one more, and this people don't believe me. Faith, Hollywood and Vine is actually a good story. Let's see. Samuel saying, I wasn't there for the live streams. I came in by the time Comicsgate changed, by the way, E describes until 2 years ago. I didn't even know about OG Comicsgate or the debate. A lot of people don't. I've heard people say that Ethan Van Sciver created it. He did not. He told me. Ethan Van Sciver, we thought was a boon. By the way, Scott Snyder warned me about it. Because we were having a conversation. I was like, dude, you can't call everybody in Comicsgate racist and phobes. And he was talking about how, oh, well, it's the company you keep. I'm a bullshit. But he says you need to be careful about Ethan Van Sciver. He's a backstabber. He'll turn on you. He warned me, and we were all like, no, we've got a good artist on our hands. And
well, that aged quickly.
Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, I don't like taking 5% of my life to get overpriced comic. That was DNC fanboy turned rogue. Melissa Moore. Yeah. Now, by the way, there were a lot of really cool articles to go after. It was a weird time. There was actually somebody being accused of murder or something like that. Like there was something that happened at a school, and somebody was trying to blame a Comicsgater.
No, a comic shop got vandalized, and somebody.
No, that was a different one. That was Gotham down here in Florida. But no, there was actually something along that lines as well. Of course. The Umbrella Guy mailbox controversy. Did he break it himself? Or did actually somebody break his mailbox? You know,
it's always interesting when you find yourself, you know, just from basically shit posting with your friends all the way to you're being talked about in articles every great now and again. It's wait, what?
It was strange. I had a DM. This is after Milo Yiannopoulos mentioned us. I had a DM. It was like, hey, I was wondering if I could ask you a few questions. Go on ahead. And they were searching for information. And I could tell by the questions, can he answer these questions? And I could tell by the questions, they didn't want to write an article about this. They wanted to find information to do a hit piece. Mm-hmm. We were the racists. We were the homophobes. That's the way we were perceived by.
We were the dangerous cult.
Yeah, that was the way we were perceived, and they wanted to write a hit. I ended up not asking the question. I'm actually kind of embarrassed though by Melissa Moore, because I actually sussed out a whole bunch of people who were like that who would come into our comments and, oh yeah, and I hate this. I'm like, yeah, that's fake. I was able to do that, but Melissa Moore got by my spidey sense. Mm-hmm. Let's see. Badoom, I think it would take a bit more than me to offend me and make me stop watching DNC. I still like watching DNC videos. I actually started back up. I stopped for a little bit because it was all about the I'm making this comic here, and okay. But when he started back into talking, and just I don't know, a few months ago, I started watching him. It's still the same. I'll skip through the first 30 minutes. If it's a longer video, for basically the first half of the video is because it'll be like, oh my gosh, this crazy thing happened at the comic shop today. And then he'll talk about something that's not the crazy thing that happened for about half the video. And then the last half of the video, he might mention what it's like one of my live streams. If I have a title, I might not even get to whatever is in the title. Yeah. But still, I like his videos. I like his points of view and such like that. Let's see, you know who lands their deadlines? Iconic Comics. You know who gets bashed by certain CG parties? Yeah, Iconic Comics. Great guys all around. Very they put out good product. I wish we were closer friends than we actually are, and I'm not saying they're not friends. I'm just saying that they are good people to hang around with. By closer, I mean actually by proximity, because they're just really cool people to hang around with. And I hope I get one more chance to meet them before we move from Florida, because they do like to come down to Disney here. All right, let's see. EVS is a cult of personality. Abso-freaking-lutely. I don't like being misled, says Clint. Me neither. I can, let's see. If I had the ready cash to back books, I'd back Iconic Comics without hesitation. Yeah, me too. I like them all. I've got the Common America here, and I like Doug's. By the way, Doug is actually improving. I remember reading the first book, and I thought, I see the mistakes in the structure of writing, but he has actually been improving. Malin lost my respect after the whole Mike S. Miller drama and EVS mistreatment of him and the CG crew. I was very happy to never purchase another Bookman. I don't understand why to go after Mike S. Miller. He's a great guy. That's somebody else who he puts a link sometimes for his live streams. I probably jump on and just continue a conversation. He's a really cool guy. They do a lot of artist stuff, and I can't draw a stick figure. I'm not a good artist at all. I'm just not.
But it's funny with John Malin, because I was sort of blindsided by how quickly he turned coat and became an EVS bootlicker, because way back, I think it was on my second ever stream on this channel, we did an interview with B. Claymore, and I was the one who kind of tried to hold B. Claymore's feet to the fire, and then John Malin came on here and was whining at Anglantine for not being confrontational enough with him, and he complimented me. And then, of course, a couple of years later, it turned around, and John Malin was EVS's bootlicker come the debate period. So
the one thing, the first time I talked to John Malin, he jumps on and he starts yelling at me because I didn't ask the right questions. And here's the thing: he immediately apologized when I pointed out to him, I don't know your history. I can't ask him questions I don't know information about. And I will be fair with whomever is on. If I have somebody who doesn't agree with, if I ever have one of the actual fandom people or whatever on, I'm going to treat them with respect. That's just the way it is. Let's see.
We had a couple SJWs on once,
and the relationship to the next level with Iconic Comics. That is most definitely it, sir. Well, I'm into Asians. Let's see. Clint says DNC videos. I was doing a thing, cough. Then this thing happened. Here's a story from my days in the military. Let me talk about this Twitter drama. This person is stupid. Back rock and roll ninja. Actually, I think he starts off with his what is that? The military comic book or something. He became a lapdog faster than you could say Bidenomics. Have you seen Mike S. Miller's current comic project? I have not, Samuel. I have not. I don't get the similar the S. Miller hate from them either. Artists are like jocks; they just use utensils instead of sports balls. I don't know. Like anytime I've ever talked to Mike, it's been because we were never like on the shows or anything all the time. But anytime I ever talked to Mike S. Miller, it has been like we didn't stop talking to each other. So he's a really, really good guy, really conversational. That being said, let's move on.
Sort of more connected with entertainment than I am. If it is changing, these are big ships that take a long time to steer.
That's what I say.
When we see Snow White or Little Mermaid, that's a decision that was made 5 years ago.
At least. Yeah,
So-
the Little Mermaid in particular was made, I believe, 8 years ago.
So we might have better stuff coming down.
An idea to make a live action Little Mermaid was made 8 years ago, but then they do know, and they'll which way the wind is blowing, and that they didn't make the decision to race swap 8 years ago.
The pipeline, but we have to get through a lot of this, quote unquote woke stuff, because that's just the ship slowly turning. But I think it will eventually go back to normal, or at least to go more non-political.
I think that at the very least, we're entering a phase where people are aware that just selling it off of woke or selling it off of anti-woke is just, you can't make enough money with that. So you're going to have to bring something else to the table.
Tell that to young Ripa.
Yeah.
Hopefully quality, but at least something else.
Yeah.
This Marvel's movie that's coming out, I'm watching some of the reviews, and you mentioned Critical Drinker. The commentary on that is starting to become less, this is political or this is woke, and instead this looks repetitive, boring, and terrible.
Yeah.
And I think it's a healthier place, because it starts to just become, look, we're not going to put up with having an.
Well, it's also more honest. It really is. Unfortunately, when you talk about woke, a lot of people, our use of woke has almost become their use of Nazi, where, okay, what is woke? You know, everybody's got their different version of it. Everybody's shouting out. We know what it is when we see it, but we can't quite describe it if we're not looking at it.
Argument over politics. Instead, it just sucks. And I don't care why you think it sucks. It sucks. I'm not going to watch it.
Yeah.
And it just, that becomes healthy. And I understand the narrative, and I knew people make money off of it, and they need to keep making money off of it and everything else. But it just, there's an exhaustion to it where at some point, you know, we would like to just watch something or read something we enjoy.
Yeah.
And not have to go through the purity test in any direction in order to get that thing.
Right. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, this is going to be like me walking into a hot topic at age 35 and going, I'm cool again. Everybody's wearing the stuff I liked in the 80s. And, it's going to be like that. That's, hey, Gail. Once again, people can hear you. She called me by my nickname. Anywho, but that's it's true. It's like I said earlier. Sometimes you just want to pull yourself away from it. You know, why can't we just watch a movie? Why do we have to go, okay, it sucks before we even see it and all that kind of stuff? It does get tiresome. I was talking to LK, as a matter of fact, our resident Black Pill, about watching some Phase 4 stuff without the controversy surrounding it. You know, before we even watched certain shows, we were being told we should hate it by the group that we're in.
At least part of it, at least part of the problem there, and you're never going to escape from it entirely, because it's in the same way as the 24-hour news cycle is and has been a thing for a jolly long time now. Now entertainment is itself a news cycle. So we know who is working behind the scenes. We know what the effects look like. We even know some of the plot beats ahead of time and so on. So it is somewhat inevitable that you are going to get people prejudging that based on entertainment news. Like every other news has a 24-hour news cycle, and privacy in any industry is basically no longer a thing.
Yeah.
For Zorro, I have the main character is actually a sister character who happens to be a lesbian.
Oh,
and someone.
And I will quote one of my favorite TV shows of all time. Oh my gosh, seriously? Come on.
Was like, oh, you should definitely push that narrative and then dunk on conservatives and then try to upset the other side. And then maybe you can get covered by the advocate, because I think this is like the first Zorro character that's gay, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like,
see, I'm not doing that. that right there is the problem. You start with just a character who happens to be gay, and then some moralistically or politically charged asshat comes in and goes, you need to make this more ideological so that we can use it as a political weapon. Therein lies the problem. Like, and I don't mean to show for myself again here, but when me and Brainstormer were writing or working on the Lionhearted universe, there are going to be characters who are diverse, incidentally, in that book, but they're not going to be ideologically diverse. And we were actually laughing, or we laugh basically every time we brainstorm about it, that we're going to wind up pissing off both the super like traditionalist anti-woke types and the woke types, because yes, we will have diversity in there, but it won't be capital D diversity. So we will please no one, but it'll be fun, and it will probably be a better story.
Clint is saying, I stood up for Peter Samiti when Ripa called him stupid and couldn't read. I said I would still back Isom, but Ripa needs to walk back the mocking Peter, and Ripa called me a dumbass. That's kind of stupid. That really is. At the very least, he could say, okay, why? At the very least, he could ask you to back up your statement, but to just say, well, you're a dumbass for what? What are you dumbass for? Does he actually believe a guy who produces comics can't read them?
This is why the NPC meme is completely useless and nonsensical, because the sad truth is anyone who thinks with their ideology first and foremost, instead of thinking for themselves, is an NPC, whether they be left wing, right wing, center wing, what have you.
I'll go one more for you, and I pissed off a lot of people with this. If you use the NPC, you're being an NPC because you're just mimicking something somebody else did.
Pretty much.
So I said this guy, and I am 100% on board with taping super chats to his warehouse. All right, I saw that, by the way. I got mad respect for Peter Samiti, the crap he was through. By the way, Peter Samiti was one of the first comic book publishers to stand up for our side of the particular, culture war. All right, let's move on a little bit. And then I think we're going to close down here. We've been talking about this shit for 2.5 hours.
I mean, the point of the struggle of LGBT, when you arrive, you can't be, you have to stop playing that game at some point.
Mm-hmm.
It shouldn't be important if you're gay. It should be as boring as your hair color. So to beat the lesbian drum, which first of all, I'm a white guy. I can't beat that drum anyway.
Yeah, you can.
I shut it down. I'm like, I'm not going to promote this book. I'm just, the point, I think a lot of lesbian activists want to get to a world where it shouldn't matter that they're gay. And one step in doing that is putting out a character who happens to be gay, and it fits the story. It's not just for, street cred or so, Mags leaves me alone. It's just like, it fits the story.
Amen.
Yeah, so yeah, it was interesting because they were like, I don't know, we definitely got to go in the advocate and fix this.
Yeah. Well, it's something we've been saying for 8 years. Has it been 8 years, 7 years now?
Close to it.
2016.
Saying you love black people or saying you hate black people is the same thing. Saying you love black people is the same thing as saying you hate black people, but just sounds nicer. Because what the message right there is all black people are the same. And
I don't see the difference between them. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's right. If you really want to get to a certain point, you got to. It's like what's his name? Morgan Freeman said, "Stop talking about it."
Mm-hmm.
And that includes being able to joke about it as well. Like you shouldn't be forced to never say anything about it either. You should be able to just casually joke. Not to toot our horn here, but we do all the time.
Comedy is basically dead these days, and you know what? I blame the gays. What were you about to say there, Dominic?
Well, I was going to say like people, we've been doing that for a good long while, over 30 years, and also we would like to poke fun at each other, and also at ourselves. And it's still like to this day, like this shift, like what people didn't recognize at first, but like they look back and realize that this shift in our culture happened in 2008, where we lost the ability to not only laugh at ourselves and poke fun at each other, like all in like good fun, but also we start to pretty much like talk about all this that we have long since like moved on from, which pretty much spitting the thing in the face at all the civil rights advocates that like sacrificed themselves to help get things to where they were back then.
The idea that the civil rights movement never happened, the women's rights movement never happened, the gay rights movement never happened, or what have you, and we're still in exactly the same place in 2023 that we were in 1979 in terms of like every single freaking issue.
Which we all know is bullcrap.
Yeah, no, the 90s happened. We won the argument. Now we have to actually be accountable for having won the argument.
Because we can get a lot of traction out of that, and you need the hot take kind of article, and I'm like, man, I don't want to play that game. It's insulting to lesbians.
Well, I don't know. None of it seems very profitable. I mean, and that's kind of the dirty secret. We were talking a little bit about it earlier.
Okay, I'm going to drop it right here. We've been talking for a long time, but I am going to leave on this note that what he's talking about was actually brought up. Okay, get us to normal there. Okay. There was a vampire movie or TV show, I think it was, on Netflix. And it was sold as the lesbian vampire story. Oh, they're lesbians up there. They're just women kissing women all over the stuff, all over the place. And don't you like that in your vampire movies? So nobody watched it. Nobody saw it. And the director actually got mad at Netflix, wanted to sue him because that's all it was more than a lesbian story, dude. But that's how they did it. It's like, and you see that all the way through. You see that nowadays for damn near everything. So what's your idea for Robin? Well, he's going to be gay. And what do you mean? Do you hate gay people? Just like, no, come on.
Yeah, no, it's just that's not enough to sustain a story. Tell me something I can actually get engaged with, please.
What would you do if a lot of people already knew gay people exist and don't give a fuck? Because that's the world we live in. Yeah, you get some people here and some people there, but for the most part, who cares? Seriously, nobody cares anymore.
Yeah, not to mention, like, so what if this one person is a classical liberal conservative or whatever? Mm-hmm. Nobody cares because we're able to get along with each other based on like not just accepting our differences, but also acknowledge the commonalities that we all share. Sure, also just like everything that's universal to our humanity.
And being allowed to take the piss out of shit that otherwise shouldn't matter. Yeah. Because if you don't bring it into normal conversation, if you don't joke about it, if you don't let yourself be a stereotype every great now and again, then that is also a kind of anti-normalization. The best kind of normalization, in my experience, is apathy. The moment you win the oppression Olympics, as it were, is the moment where nobody cares about your identity group anymore.
Yeah,
you can bring up that you're gay or black or whatever in a joke, and no one's going to blink.
That was going to be ultimately my point. It doesn't, if you say you love black people, you say you hate people, don't fucking care. That's the true acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
That's just talking and not really. And by the way, they made that into an evil thing. You say you don't notice race. Well, that's racist. No, it isn't. You idiot fucker who actually believes that we look at somebody and can't tell the difference between a white and a black guy, or it's that we don't. The freaking idiot.
It's not important.
How did your goddamn freaking generation create so many fucking idiots, Dalton? Did you take all the intelligence?
I thought. Maybe if someone kills me, it'll like raise the collective IQ of the planet by like 200 points.
They are on Twitter going, well, if you don't see race and you don't see that, no, we're saying we don't react to people based on it. You fucking morons.
It's not something that's important in my internal calculations. Is what that means.
And by the way, and to open up what we were talking about earlier, we recognize the fact that somebody who makes a peanut butter and jelly sandwich isn't a Nazi, but somebody who dive bombs into a freaking country and kills 1,500 Jews is. So that's my position on that shit. All righty, going ahead. You were trying to say something, Dominic.
No, I was gonna say like, well, we have colorblind for a reason. Not actual colorblindness, but what colorblind, as Martin Luther King Jr. talked about, that we should judge people and based on the content of their character, not by the superficial traits.
Okay, so there's a little more to what Clint was saying. Peter said he wanted comics to be open to everyone, and you should be grateful for the purchases. Ripa wanted to keep bad faith actors out of his fan base. He called Peter stupid on an EVS live stream. Let's see, I commented on Ripa's video about the tweet. Another dude made a comment. I responded to them about backing Issam, but Ripa needs to back off Peter. Ripa called me a dumbass for it. And yeah, it really is. It's stupid to do that. When you put out a product, any product, you want everyone to buy it. What he's afraid of. If you put this with what Nerdette Newsstand is saying about how he's copywriting anybody who puts images of Issam in their review videos, then it kind of seems like what he's really afraid of is anybody saying anything bad about him. And that's what he wants to get rid of.
And not only should you be wanting everyone to read your book, because obviously that's the goal of every artist on some level, but also, how are you going to convince or appeal to anyone who you haven't already converted if only the people who are your congregation show up to participate?
That's true. So a lot of Gen Z is trying to blame Gen X for their stupidity.
as well
because
as
we're basically my daughters are 28 and 27, right? Yeah, there you go. 28 and 27. I'm a good dad, I promise. So anywho, so mine are a little bit past that. Mine are millennials. But the Gen Zs, dude, I don't think that's us. I think these are not the 70s kids. These are the 80s kids who did Gen Z. These are the 90s people who are making the Gen Zs and such. But good Lord, I'm telling you, man, the freaking social media and the algorithms if you want to blame something, that's what I would blame. The fact that they don't get the fuck off their phones.
There is hope. The Gen Alphas are surprisingly based. The Gen Alphas might be the ones that save us all.
It goes like this. It goes like this. These twidiots, as I call them, have already learned at the ripe old age of 19, have already learned everything they're going to learn in their life. They were lied to. They chose to believe it, and that's good for them. But yeah, there you go. All righty. Let's see. If someone can't take constructive criticism without wanting to limit the fan base to people praising only, they need to get a thicker skin or get the fuck out of the game, says MARANYA, but she GTFO'd it. Clint Rippon doesn't do well with debate. I saw him on Tim Pool once, and man, he kept getting called out and got heated and couldn't handle it. Dude, if you do this, you look, that's one thing that not weaponized nerd rage. I was about to do the same thing my brother did. That's one thing that that diversity in comics, that whole thing taught me, man. If you're going to put your opinion out there, there's somebody out there who hates you for it. That's just the way it is. So back up and just think about this. And this is a good arrogant way. So Sean Gordon Murphy, listen to me. The way I like to piss off my brother is this: the only opinion on the planet that matters is mine. And should I have an opinion that you disagree with and you talk about, and then all of a sudden I realize that you were right, then your opinion becomes my opinion. And it's still the only one that matters.
By the way, your brother is not the only one who gets mad at you for that, because you've done it to me like 3 times too, and I hate it.
Yeah, it's a joke, obviously. And,
I know, but it's still like, God damn it. Will you at least admit that I was right and you were wrong? God damn it.
One of the things I piss my wife off with is I tell her, look, I'm not going to argue with you unless I know I'm right. So anytime we're arguing, I'm right. Stop arguing. Just shut up. That goes over well. I'm getting laid that night when I use it. Yeah.
To the couch on a completely unrelated note. I got asked to go to the couch for no explicable reason.
He absolutely hates when I do the I'm right 98% of the time. Yeah. It's more like I think the line begins behind her. People who don't like that. Right, Gail? Exactly. See, she said yes. See, she said yes again. Yeah, and
on a completely unrelated note, Gail is now going to come in and slap him several times.
Right.
But don't pay attention to the angry wife behind the curtain.
I blame the boomers for this. Hey, look, by the way, I am not a boomer. I am Gen X. The boomers are my dad. So you're talking about 77, 78-year-olds right now. So how do you get new backers when you call people who disagree retards? Ripper deserves his sales. I really want to review. I'm like, I don't tell me what to do. I hate it. The other day, I'm sitting at the warehouse and I'm just sitting down and like I just walked up and sat down. It looks like a big group was there, right? So I'm just on the phone and this guy, okay, we're going to need you to go to the other side of the line because that's where it starts. When the door's open, you can't skip anybody. Well, that wasn't my intent. It looked like a group, not a line. But my thought was, I've got a pen in my pocket and I could sure jab it right into your freaking aorta right now because of the way you're talking to me. Don't tell me what to do. If he had said, excuse me and please, it would have been a different thing. Hey, excuse me, man. The line starts over. Oh, no problem. Okay, sure. I just have a problem with people telling me stuff. I really do.
Yep, I'm
the
same way. Don't tell me to do things. Convince me, damn it.
I truly want to review. I want to review ESOM on this channel. I want to do an EFAP review on this channel with it. So yeah. But I can't afford the claim.
I mean, for what I've heard, like issue 1 is decent, but considering like this is Eric's first time writing a comic book. No, but like there were some like issues with structure in the writing. With issue 2 though, people I'd say like, it's an improvement from the first issue.
Yeah. Let's see. I blame the people who rebelled against being told no as kids and raised their kids to be entitled brats in response. I rebelled. I fucked my future because I couldn't take people telling me what to do. But my kids are not your average millennials or whatever you want to call them. But I think one of the reasons was I didn't think they needed cell phones until they were 15.
The thing is, I'm going to have to disagree with you, Maranya, because the way I see it from the inside of the millennial/Zoomer generation is the problem with our generation is there aren't enough people willing to rebel against authority. There are too many people in the millennial generation who were told something in the hoary halls of academia and bought it wholesale and nary a further aorta of critical thinking past their brains after that. Same thing with the lockdowns. There's half of the millennial/Zoomer generation that is completely based and will tell you, don't you dare lock me down or I will shove the shiv where the sun don't shine. But the other half of the millennial and Zoomer generation goes, yes, of course, person in authority. Clearly you are the one who knows what is going on. I will not rebel against you under any circumstance.
So, and by the way, Clint is saying this is when we see Gail throw a pot at my head. She has never thrown a pot. She has thrown, you threw a plate, right? It looked like it was coming at me, Gail.
Yours?
I thought you also threw a cat once. Yeah, you actually hit me with a soda, but didn't you throw a cat once? Yeah, I believe like when we were first together, you threw a cat. She threw a cat. I do. I remember it. She threw a cat. Not the first animal thrown at me, by the way. Yeah, she threw.
I'm just impressed you're still here. If you got on the business end of a cat and survived.
Yeah.
As a cat lover and a cat owner, I can tell you cats are dangerous.
Gail used to be so much more calm than she is now. I'm just kidding. I am just kidding. Let's see. No, people need to be told no. Stop coddling people in participation trophy. That
I agree, Maranya, 100%.
But that's the thing. I think we're saying the same thing and coming at it from two different angles, Maranya. Because in my head, the participation trophies and the coddling exist to prevent people from rebelling, to prevent people from telling them, "I'm not going to take this authority lying down." And that is more of a problem than people being willing to be told no and not raise any hell after that. One of the best virtues of the Gen Xers and at least half of the millennials and possibly about a third of the Zoomers is we are the generations who are the irreverent punk rock generations who will tell you, I'm mad as hell and I'm not taking it anymore. The coddling and the participation trophies, on the other hand, are the establishment's way of wrapping people in so much padding that they don't ever feel uncomfortable enough to rebel.
The giving participation trophies, that was a Gen X thing. That did start with us. I actually had a conversation. I worked at a movie theater, Cinemark movie theater, and one of the girls I worked for said, when I have kids, I'm going to buy my kids drugs so they don't go out and get bad stuff. That's dumb as fuck. I told her, I said, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Oh, well, you know, they're going to get it anyway. I said, not necessarily.
That's a little bit.
Let's get them started on drugs. We'll just make sure it's the good stuff.
That's a little bit too far, but I will tell you that my mom had that approach when it came to alcohol. My brothers were able to have an occasional beer when they were like 13, 14, and 15. And as a result, they didn't go crazy when they did turn of legal age. So while obviously the drug example is a little bit too far, there is at least some argument to stop sensationalizing risky thing as everything else.
Well, I went to a wedding when I was 13, friend's wedding, and they had a big old keg. It was a good hillbilly wedding, and they just had a big old keg of beers. And by that, I mean a gutted out keg filled with ice and beer. And we stole a few, and I thought I'd be the badass. Drank it all up and freaking blew out my O-ring. And I'm telling you that I don't like beer from that very freaking day. Samuel's saying, I have the same plans for my future kids. No phones until they're 16. Heck, maybe they won't get it until they can afford to buy their own. Nickel's worth of free parenting advice. Also, whenever you get computers or laptops or anything, they stay in an area that you can see. I would recommend that as well. And you have all passwords or anything like that. Absolutely, because they are getting messages. A lot of kids who are left alone with their phones and such are getting messages that you could either expand on or explain. I never understood cyberbullying because you can just turn it off, but these kids believe that is their whole world now. It's and so you get suicide. So you get people who believe it's okay to do OnlyFans. Oh yeah, I'm empowered. Yay! Yeah, you're a freaking whore. You just own up to it at least. Let's see, Deliverance theme plays. I've got a lot of relatives that make me very uncomfortable because of that. Deliverance, a movie which to this day I've never seen. It's pretty good movie. Same, I did not get a phone or a computer until teen. I think that's just a smart way to do things, in all honesty. That's, like I said, that's the way we did with our kids, and it was because of morality, not because we were as poor as dirt and couldn't afford it. But hey, you know what? It doesn't matter. That's the way it happened. And I think we did pretty well. The last thing I want is my kids to have my teenage childhood of half of it being on screen. I know, right? I'm very lucky for the age that I grew up in. The 80s were a great freaking time to be in the United States as a teenager, and 70s was pretty damn good being a kid too, because you were given a lot of freaking freedom, but you were also given the wisdom to deal with that freedom. Now, granted, we made mistakes from time to time, but that's the way it was. Okay. Sorry, but there you go. All righty. So what do we have going on? Tomorrow is Halloween, and yes, we will be doing a live stream tomorrow night. By we, I mean I invite everybody. Maranya, you want to jump in? Dalton, you're more than welcome. I was wondering if we should do something like this where we're talking about Halloween themed stuff, or I also was thinking maybe doing a reading of Creepshow.
As far as I was aware, Maranya still planned to do the RPG tomorrow, although I don't know if that's changed. I haven't looked at the
well, I haven't talked to her about it. So but my idea was to do a live stream, and if we did a live stream from 8 or 9 to 10:30 or something. Look, it's the day, but it's a holiday, so we'll talk about it. The RPG will be Halloween themed. Then I'll do an 8 to 10 if I do, okay, and give you guys your time. Just no copyrighted music.
And I don't know actually what I will be able to make it to and what I will not, because I am probably going to be very busy tomorrow.
Sam, join. Yeah, come on in. I'll you know what? I'll leave the I'll leave the chat open for anybody who wants to join in. I was about to say, I did I mention I met somebody, I invited them on, come on in. This is the way we do. I used to do it a lot more open mic nights where I put the thing in the chat and such, but I stopped for a little bit. But yeah, it's something I might do tomorrow as well. But yeah, Sam, you're more than welcome. Come on in. All righty, guys. My wife's home. We've been here for 3 hours. The videos, for me, it was done anyway. Join us tomorrow, I guess 8 p.m. Eastern, if you're available for that. And we'll do a little Halloween theme and talk about all sorts of stuff. Movies, comics, TV, whatever. Whatever has you. Have you seen any new horror films there, Mr. Authenticator?
Not recently. I am still probably simping for Nefarious, because unless Wonka really blows me away, which it very well might, because it's by the same people who did Paddington, Nefarious might well be the best movie this year.
I have to think about it, but I think a movie called Cobweb just entered my top 10. But yeah, that might be too early to tell. That's on Hulu. If you guys have it, you want to check it out, I recommend it, Cobweb. That being said, kids, see you tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Eastern. As always, thank you very, very much for watching. Have a good night.
See you all later.
And don't forget to do